Looks good, Mr. Latiff.
Asante sana. 156 days without a haircut.
Wow, you counted.
Yeah. See, you just said it's 150. How many days since COVID?
150.
Yeah.
So it was 6 days before that. And to say that men don't know about details. Okay.
Thank you for reminding me that it's actually been 156 days. Yeah. Now I'm feeling so cold. Make sure this AC is off. This is a cold. I am feeling so cold.
Wait a moment. So this cold that I used to speak of.
It's because of
the hair. You were not feeling it because you had hair.
Because every time I say it's cold,
I'd
be given this look of.
What's wrong with you?
Okay. It's cold. Okay. So, what was underlying was, who asked you to be old? Yes.
Who asked you not to have hair?
Old people
problems and who told you to cut your hair? Your problem. And even if you cut your hair, must you have cut that particular style, which guarantees serious ventilation?
Shoe has met the other foot. Here we are.
Yes.
Okay, welcome to the show. We have a lot to discuss today. Today is the international. What is it?
Today is World Organ Donor Day.
World Organ Donor Day.
Yes.
Okay. Now this is the day where people donate their organs.
Or you
It's
appreciate,
the day that
recognize.
you commemorate or you recognize the efforts that people have made to give others a quality of life by donating either part or all of your, or most of your organs if you're alive. And also donors may donate posthumously, so it's also recognition of them.
All right.
Yes.
I think that will have quite an interesting conversation. Because the first thing that you think of is donating a kidney to a loved one who requires a kidney transplant.
Part of a lung, part of a liver.
Lung and such. The rest is not considered organ donation.
Like what? What's the rest?
Well, you can donate
the heart.
You can donate one eye.
How many people do you hear talking about heart donation?
Well, you can't
in
really
this not
you can't
global.
give it till you're dead.
We are talking about yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you see, the idea is that you sign up and say, in the event that I die, you may harvest my heart and give it to somebody.
Viable, right?
Yeah. In this country, such kind of things. Or even saying that in the event that I die and you find that any of my body parts can be useful, go ahead. Or even donating your own body for research.
Or even your skin and things like that.
And skin, especially now when it comes to skin. This will be a very interesting conversation.
It will.
You're telling Kenyans to donate their body.
Even something as simple as blood has serious issues.
Is blood considered an organ?
No, it's not.
It is not an organ.
Okay.
But why I mention it, it replenishes itself and it's actually in very good supply. It isn't like the organs you mentioned where it's a one-off.
You lose the kidney, it's gone. You give a kidney,
That's that story,
that's it.
yes. Blood, it's replenished and you can keep donating and you can keep donating. And yet, it has many, many issues surrounding it. It's not as simple as it would sound.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And then, because today we'll also, today we're just focusing on health. In the first hour, we'll also look at, not the first hour, the second hour, that we'll be looking at the Nairobi Metropolitan Service and the region and what the NMS is doing in terms of healthcare. Oh, they're coming up with, I don't know how many hospitals in the densely populated areas. All those things, anyway, we'll talk about that. We will talk about that. In the meantime, let's look at our daily health updates. And this is the COVID-19 in the country. Fellow Kenyans.
Right, so on the 12th of August, 679 cases in Kenya, taking up the number to 28,104. 743 new recoveries yesterday. Total recoveries now stand at 14,610. Unfortunately, 10 new deaths yesterday, bringing the total number of deaths to 456. We see a trend now, so many other things happening in the world, that it would appear that COVID seems to take now...
Backburner.
Backseat, kind of.
Like?
I mean, the announcement of the Democratic vice... selection yesterday, the blast that happened in Lebanon, leadership crises now coming to the fore. Look at other things that are happening on the continent, for example, with leadership wrangles, with elections coming up. Everybody now seems to be going and focusing a little bit more on what is happening within their countries. We look at countries like Nigeria, where clashes now resumed in the northern parts of the country, and now governments are facing towards that while still trying to fight COVID. Elections are coming up for quite a number of countries in the next year or two, and they seem to now be focusing on that. But the thing is that COVID still continues to infect at a very, very high rate across the world. We're now going almost at 21 million cases, currently standing at 806,939 cases around the world. However, there are 13,706,685 recovered cases, but still the infections continue to rise. The United States, even after 10 weeks ago when they said that they would have reached their peak by the middle of April, never happened, because now they're at 5,360,302 with 169, very close to 170,000 deaths. Brazil now has crossed the 3 million case mark, 3,170,474. India now at 2.3 million. Russia had almost 1 million cases. They stayed at about 600,000 for a very long time, and now those numbers are ramping up. South Africa now having increased by 6,000 cases between yesterday and today. 568,919 cases, and now unfortunately with 11,000 deaths. So, I mean, things are happening, but COVID is still happening. And even when the United States now, schools have opened and they're seeing a high rate of infections, guess what? Among children who went back to school after the summer months. So, I mean, COVID still continues to ravage.
What I don't understand with the methods that are reported to come from the West, you have COVID supposedly under control. The infection rate has gone down to the point where you actually aren't registering many or any. Then you open up. The numbers soar.
Right.
Then you shut down again for 2 or 3 days. And I don't understand it. It is clear that every time you open up the economy in the way that you've opened it up, the numbers go up. So why do you keep repeating the same thing?
The same thing.
Why? It's something that baffles me.
What would you rather they do? Continue closure?
Yes.
For how long?
It isn't how long. It isn't how long. Many of these countries have given the impression that they don't just open up, it's piecemeal.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, that piecemeal clearly isn't working. Now, why I'm asking this question, there must be some thinking behind the way they're going about things, because it isn't as though they don't know, they can't see.
Yeah.
What I'm saying, they also see. Now, it's that thinking that I'm querying.
That's what you're wondering.
Yes, it's me thinking aloud, really. Yes.
I'm also thinking aloud and thinking. So you see, once you have closed up and your testing starts revealing that there's a drop in terms of new infections being recorded, you know for sure that you have not tested the entire population, and so you cannot say that you have 0 cases of COVID-19. The only way you're going to be able to detect those cases and where they are is by opening up so that you can see it spread, and then you identify what is it that they were calling them again? Clusters.
Yes.
So probably that's a strategy.
Let me give
You got to open up a bit so that you see, all right, so this is where the new cluster is. So close down and then go and address that cluster specifically.
Let's look at a
Because
country
you
that
know
we-
for sure that you are not at 0.
For sure. We look at a country that we spoke to directly here when we spoke to the resident minister for Ireland, and they told us about the phased opening up that they were going to perform. And this is what they did. From around the 24th of May, they were seeing, an average of 50, 60 cases per day. And this was around the time that they were going into the phased opening up from May to June. So what happened is they went into this, and then they had started recording cases of about 8 to 9 per day. So those started to drop, and they said, okay, it's time that we can now start opening, social establishments, hotels, restaurants, and bars, and things like this. They saw this significantly drop until sometime between June and July. They were recording as low as 1 to 2 cases per day, right? So then they said, okay, now we can start to open up a little bit more. And then they went into schools and such. Interestingly enough, towards the end of July, they started to see these cases rise again, 30, 38, going up to 53. But then they're able to pinpoint and said, this is happening in schools, it's happening in social establishments. So what did they do? They said, all right, we know that it's people who've left their homes and have gone to socialize, and they may have picked it up from somewhere. So they went back, and she told us very clearly that day, if we open and we see a surge in certain areas, then we can go back and say, all right, this is where we are seeing this happening. And that's exactly what they've gone to do. So what did then they see after that? Now in the beginning of August, even when they saw the spike to 60, they've seen a reduction of the cases because they've still gone ahead and said, all right, guys, let's try and keep it on the low and not go and socialize. And let's keep this thing at bay. Because what you do when you keep people away is that you don't give the virus anywhere to latch onto.
Room to move.
Exactly. So you're right, because then they could see that we know that we've not tested everybody, so there's a possibility of this still being able to spread. Let's shut it down where we can see it spreading. But it was a targeted approach, and we can see one country where it has worked, and worked very well in the last, now, 3 weeks. They've not recorded any cases above 5 per day.
So essentially, with the COVID, we are saying the entire globe is one big experiment.
Yep.
Absolutely. Everybody, it's touch and go. You feel what it is, and then you go with it. That's clear.
And even when the World Health Organization was saying this is going to be with us for very many years to come, so let's start finding ways of living with it. I think now these are governments trying to find ways of living with it. So what it is that we're going to be doing? We don't have a vaccine yet. We don't know how close or far we are to getting a vaccine. You don't know. We're still learning a lot more about this virus. So what are we going to do?
You know what is of interest? If you look at, say, the Spanish flu, which again was global, places where they managed to contain it. By the way, it's not that they did some things. They did exactly what we're trying to do now.
Lockdown.
Yes, their town that's just cordoned themselves out completely. They didn't allow anybody in or anybody out.
Yeah.
And it wasn't for a day or two, for a length of time until it was clear that the tide was ebbing. You see? So there are certain things that have been done before, and this is what we're trying to do. But I guess also with the understanding and the knowledge we now have, and the scientific advances that have been made on the globe, I think these are also they're also applying this. And I think knowing the thinking of research scientists, it isn't just COVID. It is, what if we have a different attack which isn't COVID?
Yeah.
How are we going to deal with it? Because we didn't see or foresee COVID, which means there may be something worse than COVID that we cannot foresee now. Should that happen,
What do we do?
Yes.
So they're taking all these lessons. And
Yes, it would not be very wise not to. Because under the circumstances, this is something that is ravaging the planet. This is something that's affecting us in ways that we had never anticipated.
Yeah.
So surely, if this has happened, the likelihood of something else happening is just as real as this one.
17 minutes after 6. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's take a break. We want to take a look at the weather and what's happening. Is it cold out there like it's cold in here? And then we'll begin and look at the big stories of the day. Good morning.
.24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM. The weather with Spice FM.
It's cloudy in Nairobi today. Explains why Eric Latiff is feeling a bit of a chill. Highs of 24 and lows of 13. And there's a chance of rain for early on this morning. We'll see what it looks like as we go along. In Njeri, it's cloudy at 14 degrees. We'll see highs of 22 and lows of 14. And a chance of thunderstorms for this Thursday. Nakuru is mostly cloudy at 14 degrees. We'll see highs of 22 and lows of 13. Thunderstorms forecasted for later on. It'll be the case in Eldoret as well, with highs of 20 and lows of 12. Currently partly cloudy conditions. In Kisumu, it's 17 degrees, mostly cloudy. That means rain, and that's the forecast with highs of 27 and lows of 17. Kakamega also this morning is partly cloudy at 15. It'll turn into thunderstorms later with highs of 24 and lows of 15 degrees. Malindi is partly cloudy at 23, highs of 28 and lows of 22. It's 22 degrees in Mombasa and partly cloudy, highs of 28 and lows of 21. Let's step out of Kenya into Kampala now, where it's 19 degrees and mostly cloudy, highs of 26 and lows of 19. In Dar es Salaam, it's clear skies at 21. They'll remain that way for most of the day with highs of 30 and lows of 20. A little bit warmer in Joburg in South Africa at 9 degrees this morning. Take to highs of 19, sunny conditions through the day. Come down to a very cool low of 3. In Lagos, it's partly cloudy at 23 degrees, highs of 29 and lows of 22. Paris, it's raining this morning at 22. It's likely to remain this day for most of the day, and it'll be quite warm, however, with temperature warnings at orange today, highs of 29 and lows of 20. And 22 degrees in London, clear skies, highs of 29. It's going to be rainy patterns here as well through the day. It's still Wednesday night in New York. It's clear skies, however, at 27, quite a warm night, and the summer continues with thunderstorms when they do wake up with highs of 32 and lows of 24.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
So let's start with the big headlines, but before the big headlines, the big proverb.
This particular proverb is actually dedicated to the late Chinua Achebe, who lived from 1930 to 2013. He who holds another in the mud must stay in the mud to keep him down. Should I repeat it? He who holds another in the mud must stay in the mud to keep him down.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. You'll tell us what that means. Later. All right. So let's look at the big headlines of the day. Where do you want to start? How deep do you want to go?
Go.
Now, today, my friend, there are all sorts of lovely things.
There are very many stories.
Oh,
actually,
many,
right?
many. The thing that caught my attention,
Eh.
teachers ordered to start teaching in estates and villages.
Okay.
Eh.
Yes, headline page 2 in the Standard.
Right.
Lovely headline. I've read through the article. And the thing that I found perhaps a little lacking was, given COVID as we know it, even as we have this lovely, delightful idea that the parents will welcome, how do we ensure that the ABC of safety is maintained? Simple.
What are the guidelines?
As in, you want to refer me to the article or the
Or even
of what
the
Ministry
background
of Health has
and the
Well,
TSC.
The understanding.
I'm sure the TSC and
Yes,
the
they
Ministry
do.
of Education
Yes,
have come up
they
with
do.
guidelines on
Yes,
how
they
this
do.
is going to be conducted.
They have.
What's the size of a
and
tree? So how many children under that tree?
the understanding is this: teachers more or less went back to factory settings, as in they went back to where they came from, right across the country, not necessarily where they taught before.
Yeah.
So you want to use this resource that is already in place to ensure that teaching continues. So what they're doing is they're asking for new registration with the government officials who deal with curriculum development and what have you within the regions you come from. These people exist.
Yep.
Now, having done that, then the plan of how to distribute and how to ensure you teach will come in. Now, there was the idea of using halls and what have you, but the reality is they're still going to have to use schools.
Yeah.
Because schools are in plenty and they have the space within which you can do this. Now, I am certain that they have the ABC of how to ensure students are safe somewhere on paper. What I am saying is this particular article, in my opinion, left out that important detail. Because if you read this and you are not being told about the safety measures that have been taken, it's an incomplete story. And I don't think the preparations are incomplete. I don't think so. The ministry isn't going to talk about such things without having gone through a thorough discussion and a thorough understanding of what else needs to be done beyond just saying teachers go and teach.
So without those details, then what has the story focused on? It's just the top level.
Yes, and on
this is
the
what
relief that the parents are going to get, and that learning, prior to what we had thought previously, may actually start earlier than we had anticipated. That's really the story. And yet, there is...
But without timelines.
Yes.
For example, it should say that I can see teachers given 24 hours to register their current locations. So I think, we should get a clear picture of the timelines. So within 24 hours, register. Then within this time, the information will go back to the ministry, and then the ministry will be able to distribute the teachers with a number of students in the location.
And teachers are required to develop a curriculum for daily activities.
Because I'd imagine that after doing this with the teachers, then the next thing is the first assignment for the teachers may be to start receiving information about how many students or whatever grade we have in your neighborhood.
Yes, it's a process.
This cannot be complete in 2 months, 3 months.
No, it can't be. And also, it's good information that teachers, there's a change in the thinking in the Ministry of Education. I think it's not so much a change as in letting out information in a timely fashion. This is what they do.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they've been thinking about this for the longest time and planning and plotting.
Yeah.
So there's this thinking of let's start with this and see how this goes and then move on to the next stage. It's not as though it's not one of these hit and miss situations. No. I think they know what they're doing. It's just that we are being given this information piecemeal. But it is a good thing because it shows that there is some thinking and there's some planning and there's some action that's going on. Yes. And all the complaints and the cries that parents have been letting out since COVID came into being, at least one could argue that there's a sensitivity to addressing them. Yes.
Taking that.
But in the absence of the safety precautions, this may yet be another problem. Because if you look at countries where they've opened up learning, God, goodness, gracious me.
I think then we ought ourselves to actually get a hold of these guidelines that have been issued by the TSC, so we can interrogate this issue further.
Yes, we should.
Yeah, we should do this in the coming days. So get into the guidelines, bring in the Teacher Service Commission, and get to understand, so what's the plan? And all these questions will emerge.
Okay. So, there's a story here that's a bit worrisome. And this is carried on the front page of The Nation. How young men with secret dark lives were lured and killed. Seems to be a dragnet of what is going on. But let me give you the details of this story. For a month, the gruesome murders of Joseph Gakubu, Alex Mwangi, and Evans Minor appeared to be random acts of crime. Today, as investigations by The Nation reveal, they're otherwise. Gakubu, 32, a mechanic from Mathira in Njeri County, received a phone call on the 9th of July with the offer of a welding job in Njeri town. He asked two of his friends, Mwangi, 18, and Minor, 39, to join him. And just like that, the trio disappeared mysteriously. 3 weeks later, relatives identified their badly disfigured bodies at the Thika Level 4 Hospital, mortuary in Kiambu County. According to police reports, their bodies were found in Masinga Dam, Machakos County, and transported to Thika. Post-mortem exams show Gakubu drowned with his hands tied while his friends were beaten to death and their bodies dumped in the dam more than 300 kilometers from their home. Minor lived in Karindundu village while Gakubu and Mwangi hailed from Muchoni and Mbogoini villages respectively. Multiple interviews with relatives of the deceased reveal the three were close friends. as their kin struggle to come to terms with their brutal murders. Fresh details have emerged, suggesting that the three could have been living dark, secret lives with dirty dealings that could have led to their deaths. In an interesting turn of events, police sources speak of a well-calculated plot to kill the three, gangland execution style. At the center of the plot is a mystery woman and a highly secretive killer squad of officers. Authorities have since denied the involvement of Njeri police in the murders, saying there is no special squad or officers tasked with such operations. According to the Njeri County Commissioner Loyford Kibara, I am not aware of the existence of any police unit that kind in Njeri. It's a matter that we are investigating. So by the time a story like this comes to the fore, according to this report, there are others where people have lost their kin or having been found dead, murdered, execution style, and it would seem that the police were involved in one way or another. It's not the first time that such accusations have been made or allegations have been brought forward that police might be involved in things like this, where young men, and in some cases women, disappear out of the blue.
Oh, yeah. So extrajudicial killings, the story always appears and it keeps, reappearing. And then there's a matter. The police are unable to get themselves out of the hook because they are the ones who ought to have conducted an investigation into what exactly has happened in this case. And then when the police maybe hit a dead end or they're unable to unravel what's happening, then it's possible that the other side of stories start coming up. It may not even be true. Because if you read further in that story, there's this whole plot twist that says the woman had been was gonna be used by the three young men to execute some businessman, and then the woman reached out to the businessman and told of
this
the
was
plot.
the plan, yes.
And
It's a bit of a mess.
it's a bit of a mess. It's possible that another gang killed this gang.
The realities around such things are so many. Not realities.
The
The
possibilities.
the realities in such are really vast, because we can only talk about what has been uncovered, what we think we've uncovered. But what about what we don't know?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Every time we talk about the police force, there's a thought that comes to mind. Are our police force adequately equipped to actually deal with the matters that they are required to do? Are they really equipped? Do we equip them sufficiently to deal with these things?
Yeah.
Because if you talk to a policeman and they tell you their side of the story, you will pause and say, goodness gracious me.
You would pause and think,
So
all
this is
right.
what you have to deal with. Yes, you
In
will
a case
pause.
like this, for example, so bodies are discovered in a dam. This is Masinga Dam, taken to a mortuary. Investigations begin. First of all, identifying who these people are. That requires a resource, a team that just dedicates themselves to
doing
this case.
precisely that, yes.
How many do you have officers in that region? How many would be able to follow this up?
And in that region, do they have the sort of equipment to do this? Or does everything has to be put together and sent to Nairobi?
They're sent to Nairobi and then you wait, join the queue because also other staff has come from Turkana, Mandera
And everywhere else.
27 minutes to 7 o'clock. Let's take a look at traffic and then we continue looking at the big stories of the day. Good morning. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Live streaming on Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, as well as www.spicefm.co.ke.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. Traffic.
It looks like traffic is already going to be crazy today. Let's start off Mombasa Road, where it's already chock-blocked. And this is from the interchange all the way to Mlolongo already. Don't know what the problem is up ahead, but as we're getting reports to see that traffic has already hit bumper to bumper situation right now, and so this one we're going to have to sit out. It's already early, and anybody who leaves after this is going to get stuck in this. And this is going all the way towards the SGR, and then after that all the way to Cabanas. After the General Motors is when you get a little bit of reprieve, but it's likely to be drama on Mombasa Road already, as is on Thika Road, where an accident has already taken place. So please avoid the service lane on Thika Road if you can. There's too much traffic because there's an accident way up ahead. So avoid the service lanes on Thika Road this morning. An accident has occurred and emergency services are being waited on to clear that out of the way. So this is attracting a little bit of madness already. It's already slow on the Mwiki Kasarani Road, so you can use the back route if you're heading towards Mwiki, or also then out to use the Eastern Bypass. Those are the options that we have for now. We'll give you some more details as we go along. Let us know what you see as well. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter.
Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
Okay.
94.4.
Let's continue looking at the big stories of the day. The Standard headline: a crisis of leadership. And this is just basically making reference to the ongoing standoff or stalemate in the Senate on the revenue sharing formula. The Senate is in shambles. Members are meeting on Monday for a record 9th time as party leaders struggle to rally their troops to pass a formula for sharing county revenues. This is, we've said before, is exposing quite a bit of what's happening in this country. In terms of now, as per the new formula, amendments were brought up or have been brought in, suggested by several senators. One amendment comes, it flops. Another amendment comes, it's amended. And then the amendment to the amendment to the amendment is amended, is passed, it's voted for, and then they run out of time.
Nothing.
So they have to adjourn, and the game continues. This is pointing to what the Standard is calling a leadership crisis.
I tend to disagree.
Why?
This isn't a crisis. This is what happens when you operationalize your constitution. This is what happens when senators do what they're supposed to do and not just rubber stamp things that have been brought to them. You find ideas coming out, you hear discussions, you hear a variety of views. This is the Senate, as is with the Parliament, this is a debating society by and large. Let them debate this matter and let them thrash it out so that when you arrive at a certain conclusion, one can feel that this thing was thoroughly hashed out.
Here's how a crisis is manifesting itself. Within that Senate, forget about the leadership and the president and the former prime minister. Just within the Senate, why don't they have leaders that emerge and are able to bring them together and say, all right, so what is your proposal? What is your proposal? Can we put all these proposals into one amendment?
But Eric, but
Why
this
do
is
we
what
have
is
to have
happening.
That's not what is happening.
No, this is what is happening.
What?
There's a group that has come up with what they think should work, and they seem to have good numbers. Now, there's a group that also has an idea. There's no leadership. There's just two divided groups.
Yeah.
And you can't have groups and not have leadership at the same time.
Within those groups, there are several proposals.
Yes, there are.
Within the Team Kenya group, there's an amendment by Sakaja.
Yes.
Then there's an amendment to Sakaja's amendment by Linturi.
Yes.
Then there's an amendment to Linturi's amendment of Sakaja's amendment by somebody else. Is it the Narok senator? That shows you something. Why can't they just put all those together, consolidate all of them, and put up one amendment so that we don't have to go back and forth?
Why this becomes an issue is that we are being treated to a blow-by-blow account of what's happening. But this is just a normal process. Someone says something, the other one has an idea. The fact that the ideas have come out is, in my mind, a clear sign that they will arrive at a consensus.
Yeah.
This is, in my mind.
Eventually, one would hope that they'll arrive at a consensus. What the issues emerge is the time it takes for them to arrive at a consensus and what that means. You only have one job. You are senators. You are legislators. You protect the interests of devolution. If it requires you, for example, between Tuesday and the next sitting, for you to lock yourself down and say, all right, everybody, what's your idea? All right, I have a problem with this idea because of this and the other. I'd proposed. Agree. Then come to the floor of the House, all of you in agreement. And this is where leadership comes in. Because you'd find a leader should emerge who says, guys, let's take this route. Let's ensure that we arrive at a consensus. So by the time we're going into the chamber, we have one position that we are sticking with. And then we are able also to reach out to the other side, because consensus behoves upon you to reach out to the other side and show them your point. There is no leadership. The leadership of the minority are fighting the same battles. The whips, the majority leader, minority.
Why don't
the leader of the majority, for example, and the deputy leader of the majority are in different camps? That already tells you something.
Oh, but that's, I actually consider this to be a wonderful situation that we are in.
If a leader of majority cannot convince their deputy,
yes,
then we have a problem.
Eric, when we have a situation where the underbelly of an institution such as this one is being shown, it's a good thing. It tells you, one, this is where we are with regards to these matters, but it also tells you where else we can go and we should go. I actually find this whole thing good. The confusion or the reported confusion, the differences, principles being thrown into the fray and saying this is what they want and the people going against, all that is good. Unless it's one big charade, unless it's just one big drama that has been set in motion for our consumption.
Well, this is the thing.
And yet at the end of the day, they know exactly what it is that they're going to do. But this one, why don't we have episode 2 of this one here and see how it goes, even as we know exactly what we're
Episode
going
2. We are going to episode
This
9.
is episode 9 that we're on now. Because that's what it is. Every time there's a sitting, there's drama.
I actually meant season 2.
Oh, you meant season 2. Okay, right. So if we're going by seasons, we still have maybe 3 or more episodes in this particular
yes.
season. All right. So, but I mean, just looking at it and how it's been playing out, if it were that this is an authentic playing out of what we see, then absolutely yes. The leader in this case should be able to say, okay, guys, we see that these are consenting views, or we see that these are divergent views. There are ways in which we can combine everything and see how we can have a solution. If it is that this is a real playing out of things. If the converse would be that it's just drama and there's a political tinge to it, then you can see why nobody's willing to step in and play the leadership role.
Oh, but leadership roles are being played. They may be divergent and they may be many, but they are being played.
There are very many leaders.
Yes, there
There
are
are many
people.
leaders in the
Yes,
same pot.
exactly. Their voices, all these voices you keep hearing.
All leaders.
Look,
That tells you this.
ask yourself a simple
Problem.
question. What is it? This is the many cooks thing coming into play.
It spoils the broth.
Consider for a single second. Well, I mean, it would be more useful, actually, not a second. Here you have a situation where there's all this debate taking place, and all these people are politicians. All of them. None of them wants to retire after this term. And we have 2022, 15 months to go. What do you think is actually happening? In terms of a platform or an arena within which someone can display their prowess, it cannot get better than
They're
this.
playing to the gallery.
Yes, it can't get better than this.
Okay. Now, and this is where now the top level leadership also comes in. Something like this. For instance, why is it that we're not seeing a parliamentary group meeting of the majority side being called, or parliamentary group meeting of the minority side being called? The president is the leader of the majority, right?
Yes.
So how difficult is it for him to say, all right, so all the majority side senators, can we just sit down? You guys lock yourselves up in a room. I understand that within this grouping, we have people with divergent views. Everybody stand up, say exactly what you think. Then must have a solution.
Didn't Senator Kanata try that on the weekend? And we know
But
how
you see,
that
he's
went.
not the leader. Uhuru Kenyatta is the leader.
It is true.
His coalition partner, post-election coalition partner, Gideon Moi, is a member of this Senate.
He is.
Leader of KANU. KANU has several senators in this house. Jubilee has several senators in this house.
Eric,
Is it not possible for just them to call and say, all right, guys, come in.
If-
Let's see. Can we agree that, first of all, we are going to arrive at a consensus? Yes, all right. So whatever happens, we agree to disagree, but let's look for the best way forward.
If the intended goal, and I agree with you, if the intended goal actually is to have an agreement or is to have a formula, then that decision would be easy. But then that's where you have to invite the possibility of what CT was saying, unless it's a whole political charade, and this is what we are being given audience to. Because if the intended goal was to make sure that we have this formula in place, let's go, then I do believe that somebody would have stepped up at this point and said, call a PG, for example,
Yep.
and say, all right, guys, this is taking a little bit too long. Are we all on the same page that we need a formula, we need to get this done? Yes, all right, go. But if that's not the intended goal, then you can see why this is playing out, and we're still going to be, party to 4 more episodes in season 1.
again, this is something that COVID has done for us, in the sense that the status quo can no longer be the status quo. There are always new status quos, if I may take that liberty of calling it that, for the simple reason. Ask yourself, why is this debate apparently getting the amount of attention and heat? Because it is assumed that when these things arrive in either the Senate or Parliament, they've already been hashed out and an agreement has been arrived at, and people know the path they should follow. So if we go through
Predetermined.
yes, meaning you know what you're supposed to do, and the leaders don't need to call these meetings. It's already been discussed and agreed upon.
Yeah.
It appears that agreement isn't holding, if there was an agreement. And it isn't holding on
From
both
what
sides.
they say, there has never been such an agreement, which tells you leadership crisis again. CRA presents a formula on 30th of April 2019. Okay? Nobody takes leadership on that. It's taken to a committee. Committee, for whatever reason, with whatever understanding among members, changes some of the proposals by the CRA, presents this to the Senate, and then this is not agreed upon. Month after month after month, session after session after session. I agree with what the standard is saying. There's a crisis of leadership. And I respectfully accept that you disagree with what the standard is saying. And I can see your point.
Isn't it wonderful to be able to see things, Eric?
If only this would happen in the Senate. If only this too would happen in the Senate.
In the Senate as well, right?
Yes.
Okay, let's take another quick break at 12 minutes to 7 o'clock. It's the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, looking at the big stories in the big newspapers of today. Today's editions of the big newspapers. All right, yeah, that's better, right?
Happening now.
Yeah, happening now. Unfolding. We'll be back shortly.
spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
It's happening.
Okay.
Okay.
You want to go?
Okay.
Go.
So, I just want we this happened yesterday, but it happened. Okay, it would be our yesterday, right? And Harris, Kamala Harris, is a woman of firsts all her life. She has been picked by Joe Biden as a running mate in the U.S. elections, and there's been so much that has been said about her in the recent hours of her being a minority, of her having. Yes, obviously, being a woman, and Joe Biden's selection of this means very much for the people of the United States. And we saw that there were so many endorsements that came from across the board, from civil society to celebrity society. And he said, my mother used to have a saying. She would say to me, you would be the first to do so many things, but make sure you're not the last. She was the first Black Attorney General of California, the first woman to hold the post, and the first woman of South Asian heritage to be elected to the U.S. Senate. She's now seeking to become the first female vice president of the United States. With 77-year-old Biden expected to serve a single term if elected, Harris would be favored to win the Democratic presidential nomination 4 years from now. So they've already catapulted her to presidential
So there's a
candidate
plan.
status, right?
Yangu nne, ya Harris nane.
Voila. So this
Good
should,
arithmetic.
this could give her a shot at more history making. So, I mean, it's just history in the making for this woman. As the first female president of the United States already, can you see it emblazoned in the skies? Senator Harris is a tenacious and trailblazing leader who will make a perfect partner on the campaign trail, according to Susan Rice, who served as National Security Advisor under President Obama and was also under consideration to be Biden's running mate. Yes, we can, is what is being said
Do you
now.
actually think this would have taken place if the
Black Lives Matter didn't
movement
occur?
did not gain the traction it gained?
I think
Good
it's
point.
strategy at its best, to be honest. And I think that Biden made he made this call, obviously not alone, but I think the lines fell in very pleasant places for this to happen at this time. Black Lives Matters happened. You're still looking at things for gender balance. At the same time, we're in the United States is in this whole furor about changing the system when it comes to the inclusion of African Americans in everything from the very beginning. And there's a presidential election, there's COVID, and there's all this talk about decisions being made by a not so adequate President Trump, etc., etc. And then you come and say, here we have a Democratic candidate, and who has he selected? A mixed race woman who has African blood in her, who has Asian blood in her, and has been the first in so many cases when it comes to gender issues. She's a woman in the Senate, blah, blah, blah. It was perfect. It was strategy. It was right on the button. And I think that in doing this, they made a statement even more than a selection.
And the thinking behind is that the voter will agree with them.
Well, I mean,
That's what they're hoping.
That's what they're hoping. But then also look at it could be, it could be a fly by the seat of your pants reaction. But look at what happened when they made this decision. Everywhere was ablaze with all of this fantastic decision with you.
Yes.
this,
Trump
that, the
is
other
the
thing.
happiest. First of all, Trump, who beat a former first lady, a former senator as well, and somebody with global name recognition, is now looking at one, sleepy Joe Biden, and then now Kamala Harris. He tweeted and said, Kamala Harris started strong in the Democratic primaries and finished weak, ultimately fleeing the race with almost zero support. That's the kind of opponent everyone dreams of.
Yeah, but you didn't have black. Now, the thing is, just like Cecilia said, you have Black Lives Matter right now, which kind of catapults her now, even, further ahead in the race, because it's what everybody's feeling. And I think the American people for longest, when surveys have been done, have been known to be voters of the heart. What they're feeling at that particular point in time is what their vote is going to dictate their vote. I mean, studies have been done that, interestingly enough, that this voting block, it's how they're feeling at the time that they vote. When they voted Barack Obama in, it was like, we need a change. We need somebody else who's going to come and maybe take this thing. And then there was the whole thing of, all right, can you make America great again? And Trump came in with all the different things that you're going to be able to say about him. But he came in and he was able to deliver that sentiment to the people at that time. They vote with their heart. They vote with their heart. And here, Black Lives Matter took everybody by storm. It's still taking them by storm. Black and white alike. So if you're able to do something that's going to resonate with that emotion at that time, hey.
You know, one of the things that this particular debate brings to the fore is the issue of racism. I'm pinpointing that one specifically because I don't know of any country where people are as sensitive to the issues around racism, not the practice or the removal of it, but just the issues around racism like the US.
Like the US.
See? Here, we're a bit insensitive. We're openly tribalistic without too much apology, and we find it is okay.
You can say anything, really.
More or less.
Yeah.
The only thing that probably hinders your tongue from wagging is the fear that somebody may charge you with hate speech. So, but then, America has also had an interesting change. Trump introduced a change that may seem innocuous, but it's there. Trump is the one president who has said some of the most racist things you could actually ever think about. You would not even consider would come out of the mouth of a president.
Or anybody.
And president, mostly because you represent a larger demographic, and appears to have gotten away with it. Because it isn't as though his support base suddenly reduced in number. No.
Nope.
It's like the support base.
He's galvanized more members into his support base.
Yes.
Same thing, same way that the Black Lives Matter has been able to galvanize more people into the other side. And there was even some conspiracy theory at some point that, the Black Lives Matter was being wind assisted by the deep state and the Democratic side.
Oh, there's those two words again.
Yes, and let's get it right. It's not dip stick. It is deep state.
Dipstick is something totally different.
Yes.
But, okay.
Normally found in vehicles.
Yes.
The truth of the matter is this. What Kamala Harris's current position has done, it has opened up or furthered that debate that America has been having for the longest time. Yet it's given it a new lease of life.
Yeah.
So the discussion can now actually continue.
Let's see how this unfolds. We've got just a couple of months to see.
November's not too far away.
Yep.
No, it isn't.
Yep. May the best men win.
Page 10 and 11 of the Standard have two really very interesting articles. But let's go into a break before we consider that.
Let's go to the top of the hour, and then as we start the next conversation, you'll actually bring it in. Top of the hour, this is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. CT, as we go there, just remind us today's proverb.
He who holds another in the mud must stay in the mud to keep him down. You hold someone in the mud, you want to keep them in the mud, you also have to stay in the mud.
You've got to stay there.
Yes.
You're not getting out.
No, you can't hold him in the mud if you're out of the mud. You have to stay in the mud.
Oh, my goodness. Well, keep it right here. In the next hour, we will be talking about the state of health in the Nairobi metropolitan region, and we'll be speaking to the Chief Officer of Health in the NMS, Dr. Oma Oluga, who will be with us shortly. Good morning. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. It's now 7 o'clock.
Spice up your life. Spice FM. Nakuru. Traffic.
Okay, there's traffic everywhere. I don't know what I'm going to do today, but that's the only way I can look at it now. Mombasa Road is terrible. Fog day everywhere. It's thick, it's heavy, it's raining at the same time. There was already traffic from Lolongo. It's taken us all the way to the SGR and even further to Cabanas. It's an absolute mess. I don't know what you want to make I tell you now, but it is not looking good at all. Neither is it looking any better on Thika Road, where there was an accident and you're being asked to avoid the service lanes, which would have been your salvation from the major highway. But do not use that today, because that is where the accident has happened, just past Survey. So today, it's going to be tough. If you want to go to Juja Road, you can, because the traffic is flowing very well there. I don't know what would take you there, but that's just one place where there's no traffic. Limuru Road is very foggy and it's jammed. Visibility is very low. I know, I'm not the bearer of good news at this point. Maybe later it'll look better, but for now, around about 7 o'clock doesn't look too good, guys. Spice of MK, if you're stuck somewhere, let us know as well.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Nduh Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
We are going to talk about the state of health, or the health of our state. All right.
Well,
Either of them. What's the health of the health status of the judiciary?
The health status of the judiciary is actually interesting, because the judiciary seems to be the only arm of government that I can see that actually conducted a survey in 2019, or at least, let me put it broadly, they've gone into the bother of trying to determine their own efficiency, effectiveness, and the problems that they have. The summary was that it turns out, in terms of corruption, Malindi High Court, according to the survey, was by far the most corrupt, meaning where 22 respondents to the survey said 22% they'd been asked for a bribe. Now, those who then complained about and unhappy with the services, Kitale came number one. 27% said, we are not really happy with these services. And the other details. And they talk about all the courts, the high courts all over the country. They talk about even the Supreme Court.
Nice.
And all these questions were asked. It's a 122-page document, and it documents all these things in detail. Now, of interest, and why I mentioned page 10, is that there's a certain lady, Justice Lucy Mbogwa, Justice of the Meru High Court. This is a lady who has again, she has come out, meaning they even have a system which tells you which of their judges are the most efficient. She has turned out to be efficient, not once, twice.
For the second year in a row.
In a row.
Very good.
And what she says, she contributes this to is she simply put into practice something called active case management, ACM. This was the brainchild of one justice.
Willie Mutunga, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, he did.
And so you start off with X number of cases that don't seem to have been managed, and she has been able not just to finish her caseloads, but to even go into history and start dealing with caseloads that were previously not there. Meaning it can be done. Now, this is what you call self-management.
Good.
Excellent.
Very good. Let's come now to Nairobi and the Metropolitan and the state of our health, okay? So what we've been seeing lately is, well, let's not talk about the health of the health of the two top leaders and the relations between the two top leaders seem to have thawed yesterday, actually, though, now improving yesterday. But it's about provision of healthcare services to the residents of Nairobi City County. One of the things that people have complained for very many years is, you go to a hospital congested, everybody just thinks of going to Kenyatta or Mama Lucy or the others, Mbagathi, right? And the primary healthcare facilities have just been not so good. I don't want to use any other word. Not so good in terms of people don't really trust, or people don't even know that there's a nearby healthcare facility that they can go to. Now, the NMS has come up and they've said, especially now during this fight against COVID-19, we want to build new hospitals in various parts of this city. And we want to ensure that these hospitals are well kitted, well equipped to serve the people in these particular areas. What's the progress of that? We saw the president the other day over the weekend going around and touring these facilities and saying, okay, so this is where we're going to put up one. Yeah, we already started. We have a journey to go and we've got a journey to complete. But many questions still remain about the state of our healthcare. Let's speak to the man who is now running this docket, right? The Chief Officer of Health in the Nairobi Metropolitan Services, Dr. Ouma Oluga, joins us on the line. Good morning, Dr.
Good morning. How are you?
We are fine, thank you. Welcome to the Situation Room once again.
Thank you.
Doc, so let's start from what we did. We saw you taking the president round over the weekend.
Yes.
Just give us a brief of this particular project.
So this is part of a presidential directive that we provide health services to the people of Nairobi in the informal settlements. And just by way of background, majority of Nairobians actually live in either the informal settlements or very near informal settlements. And much of our population here in Nairobi, as per the last census, our population is around 4.39 by day, but it goes up to 7 million. By night, the people are residents, but it goes up to 7 million by day. And that means that Nairobi has quite a huge population to take care of when it comes to health. And now, when we came in as NMS, we quickly did an assessment. And out of this assessment, we found out that there are specific areas in Nairobi that are very highly populated, but that do not have any health facilities or health services. And this is part of the problem that has been there because the facilities that we have, therefore, that are nearby are very congested. And also 47% of all these people end up going to Kenyatta National Hospital. So they also overburden Kenyatta National Hospital. So we proposed and the president quickly accepted and directed that we do implement provision of health services to these persons. And so if you go to places like Viwandani, Majengo, Soweto, Kayole, Mathare, Korogosho, Kibra, Kawangware, there are no specific facilities, perhaps because of the fact that these places are informal settlements, and informal settlements by their nature are not necessarily planned. So they just mushroom, and then you can excuse the fact that there was no plan to build a health facility nearby. But still, people live there. 65% of Nairobi's population live in these informal settlements. So as we look at these urban renewals, as we look at the urban planning, as we look at how to get rid of informal settlements, we still must provide healthcare, which is a right actually. So we decided that we are going to provide this healthcare, and therefore we mapped out 24 locations that we are going to build these facilities. And through the support of, as you say, the president and also the director general, we've actually begun.
So these 24 facilities, what level of facility are they? I mean, what is it that you expect to put up? How big, and how are you going to even resource them?
They are big facilities because there are nine of them are level 2, and then the rest are level 3. And level 3 facility means that it has a bed, it has a inpatient. And these inpatients range from 16 beds. There's a theater. There are consultation rooms, at least 3 consultation rooms with laboratory. There is a maternity. And that means that it provides the range of services that are commensurate with mid-level hospitals. So basically, these hospitals are just slightly smaller than what services we provide in Bagathi or Mama Lucy. And let me just give you a scenario, for example. If you go to Mama Lucy, it has 135 beds, but it serves a population of 1.6 million people. Now, Makueni County has a population of 1.6 million people with 216 facilities. That is the population that is served by one facility called Mama Lucy. So even though, and you started mentioning some of these challenges, even though people complain about the services that are given in Mama Lucy, but the facility is stretched beyond its capacity. Right now, the facility is doing 50 deliveries every single day, sometimes up to 65. But the facility only has a capacity to accommodate 25 deliveries. So if you're going to have 50 deliveries in a hospital with a capacity of 25 deliveries, then you already can see where the Wananchi complain about. But Wananchi sometimes are not told about these things. And the expectation is very high, and also the need is high, because when you come to hospital, you don't want to know what's going on, whether the theater is occupied by another person.
Not your business. You want to get well.
It's not your business. You want to get well. And sometimes also, because of that, we don't bother sick people by explaining to them that, I will treat you, but I want you to wait a little bit, Yeah, and this is part of what is causing the frustration. So around that Eastlands alone, you can see in Mathare, 3 of these hospitals will be in Mathare, just to sort out that issue, so that there's decongestion, so that these cases that do not have to go to Mama Lucy, if you have 5 hospitals that also have theater, that has a doctor that can do cesarean deliveries, then you've already decongested Mama Lucy. So then that means Mama Lucy can give better services to the people that go there, but also it has room to give more specialized services, not the basic services. So this is part of our plan in Nairobi, and we are very grateful that the reception by Wananchi has been very good. We have gone round, and we've been doing stakeholder engagement. Of course, not the ones that you see, the politically instigated ones, but we have stakeholder engagement, and people themselves are telling us, we want these hospitals, we will support them, and then they have already, you can see there was no much fuss about it, and we've just begun, and we will do it.
Dr. Luga, in your previous roles, you talked about the fact that you would hope that more doctors would be given employment, really, within the country. So with the now added facilities for Nairobi alone that you're going to obviously are working on now, then does this guarantee employment for the many doctors who are looking for work?
Absolutely yes. We already have 256 that we have been approved to employ. That is from the health workers, by Public Service Commission. And part of the support and the directive from the President and the Director General is that we actually do recruit. In fact, he says by the time the hospitals are ready in terms of the construction is complete, we should have equipment in them, we should have staff in them. So we are very clear on what we've been directed to do.
I want to come back to just using the example of the Mama Lucy and the attempt at decongesting Mama Lucy and the demand for services at Mama Lucy. So when you come back out of this quite quick break, we want you to give us examples of 250 beds, and then you're looking at how you're going to be able to decongest this particular facility with the kind of facilities that you're coming up with. Dr. Luga is the Chief Officer of Health in the Nairobi Metropolitan Services. We are talking about the state of healthcare provision in the Nairobi Metropolitan. The NMS has launched this project to come up with 24 various facilities, many of them level 3 facilities. That means that they have inpatient capacity, they have theater, they have labs, they have consultation rooms, maternity wings as well. And if this actually comes to fruition, then we're talking about having new hospitals, 24 new hospitals within the city. That would be a good thing. But there are very many questions surrounding this particular project and the implementation of it. And that's what we are raising this morning. Good morning. At 7:15, let's take a look at the weather and come back with this conversation shortly.
The weather with Spice FM.
All right, very foggy in most parts of Nairobi this morning. Cloudy conditions are likely to continue for most parts of the morning. Currently at 14 degrees, we'll see highs of 24 and lows of 13. It's a drizzle in also several parts of the city. Okay. In Njeri, at 14 degrees, it's also cloudy. We have thunderstorms in the afternoon. The high is 22. 22 would be the high in Nakuru as well. Showers expected later. Currently at mostly cloudy conditions at 15 degrees. It's 12 degrees and partly cloudy in Eldoret. Highs of 20 and lows of 12. And it's going to be a wet afternoon there as well, as is in Kisumu, with highs of 27 and lows of the currently mostly cloudy 17. In Kakamega, it's partly cloudy at 15 degrees. Highs of 24 and lows of 15, with showers expected later on. In Malindi at 24 degrees, it's partly cloudy, highs of 28 and lows of 23. It's 23 degrees in Mombasa and mostly cloudy as well, with highs of 28 and lows of 22. Let's take a look into Kampala, where it's mostly cloudy at 19 degrees, highs of 26 and lows of 19, with a forecast of rain for the afternoon. It's going to be mostly sunny in Dar es Salaam today, highs of 29 and lows of 20. Where in Johannesburg, it's 8 degrees and quite chilly this morning, highs of 19 and lows of 3. And finally, for now in Lagos, it's partly cloudy at 23 degrees, highs of 29 and lows of 22.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings
17 minutes after 7 o'clock. This is the Situation Room. The conversation continues with Dr. Muga, the Chief Officer of Health in the Nairobi Metropolitan Services. We are talking about the plan to decongest, some of these current health facilities and offering health facilities to more in the population. Dr. Oluga, before we went to the break, you were giving us an example of Mama Lucy, and you used Mama Lucy as a good example. What category is Mama Lucy Hospital?
Mama Lucy is a level 4 hospital.
Okay, so level 4, and the capacity currently in terms of how many people it can serve on a daily basis?
Mama Lucy serves 1,000 people every day.
Okay.
Just half the number that Kenyatta National Hospital serves, and very many people come from the neighboring counties also to Mama Lucy. So it's always at 200 to 300% of its capacity, and even that there is the plan to expand the facility to what it was meant to be when it was conceptualized. So we'll be expanding the 135 beds to more than 300, just so that it can also respond to that population that it serves.
So in the planning, how many facilities are you putting up that would be able to decongest the demand for Mama Lucy?
Around Mama Lucy alone, out of these 24 are 7 facilities.
And these are the level 3?
Yeah, this is level 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. So now, as we're looking at now going through and opening up all of this and then making health then available, we've seen other counties in the country focus on health quite a lot, and meaning that other things, we've been told that the possibility of other things suffering then is actually quite high. Looking at services that then would be given within the Nairobi metropolitan area as concerns health, and in terms of capacity, is there enough to go around? I mean, and to look at what now you've described, it is ambitious, Dr. Luga. Is the capacity to have this in full operation a reality available?
With the support that we have, I think it is. And that's exactly why I limited this anyway.
Huh?
Yes, we have to do the ambitious things because it's about services to Nairobians, and it's not necessarily very ambitious. If you go to the informal settlement and you look at the demands of healthcare, Nairobi has had let me say Nairobi has one of the worst indicators of maternal mortality. So you may be living in Nairobi, but in terms of health provision, you're not better off than someone living in a far-flung county that has to go more than 10, 20 kilometers for a health facility. Because Nairobi may be small, but it has its own challenges in terms of access to care. You have ambulance services that may not go directly into the informal settlement because there is perhaps roads that were not done or perhaps security issues. The population alone in those facilities makes it very difficult for people to move. So if anyone who is familiar with what informal settlements are, would actually understand that this is not ambitious. This is actually what we should do, because you have to bring the service closer to the people. If you are keen on making sure that every single citizen in Nairobi access care, then that's what we have to do. In terms of whether other services will suffer, I think that's not in my purview, but I think the Director General, Major Badi, has been very clear on the role of NMS and the other things that we are doing in terms of other sectors. So for us in health, we are very focused on the directives that we have to restore health services to the people of Nairobi. And if you look at the distribution of health services, and especially during this time of COVID, we've learned a very painful lesson. And one of that is that 406 facilities in Nairobi are private, and 102 are public. But when COVID pandemic started, and most of the private facilities downscaled, either because of curfew, either because of the cost of running those facilities, buying PPEs or their workers. So most of the facilities really downscaled. And we saw a rise. In fact, Nairobi is one of the only counties that we have not seen a decline in the number of people visiting hospitals. As I've told you, the public facilities, they increased in terms of demand because of the smaller clinics were no longer able to function because of other challenges of COVID. Yeah. And these facilities are private. All of these people came to the public sector. Yeah. And when they're coming to the public sector, you can now see the congestion. So Mama Lucy, for example, and even many of our facilities, if you go to Kangemi, if you go to Kibera South, if you go to, just choose any health center that is near you, you will just look at the outpatient department and see the number of people waiting for services.
Dr. Muga, as you talk about the comparison, though, between private hospitals and public hospitals, what would be the better comparison? I mean, and I say better, I mean, for lack of a better word, but what would you prefer that the comparison be? Should there be more public hospitals with the capacity to serve? Have you seen the mushrooming of private hospitals because of a lack of public hospitals to be able to deliver?
That's not really the question to answer. The question to answer is how much of the population is served by private and how much of the population is served by the public. So now the public facilities may be few, but they serve 65% of the population. So you have to cater for that 65% of the population. Okay. So it's not really in the number. It is in the capacity.
But also it's indicative of the fact that there hasn't been any development of public hospitals for X number of years.
Because if you're talking about 406 compared to 102, being 406 being private hospitals, I mean, I don't think that people just woke up and decided to establish a hospital. There must have been a need that they were seeing that they were fulfilling, no?
That is true. You're very right. There must have been a need, but also in terms of access. Access is not just the availability of a facility next to your house or next to your apartment. It is your ability to afford that facility. Yeah.
But alongside that
is what does not exist for the Nairobians. So most of the Nairobians cannot afford. So someone comes all the way. They stay next to Aga Khan or they stay next to some clinic. But then they have to come to Kenyatta National Hospital, Mama Lucy or Mbagathi or Kangemi or Ngara or,
Dr. Luga, what is being done by the Nairobi Metropolitan Services is truly commendable, but I'm just dovetailing my question onto what has been asked by my colleagues. This is a great deal of money. Is this just part of the normal budgeting for health services within the county, or have you had a new infusion of cash to carry out these grand projects?
And that's now beyond me to answer.
Yes, indeed, Dr.
So let's rephrase the question then. Why now?
And if this was
Because
available
the
before,
message
why
was-
was it never done?
Because NMS exists now.
It's the same government. Look, NMS is basically a transfer of services from a county to the national government. The same
Because
national
something-
government and the same administration has existed for 7 years.
Yeah, but you see, like, come on, you guys. I was in the union before.
Yep.
Yes.
And there is
So
a
you
part
know
of the-
what
I know
you're
what you're
asking.
saying.
You understand
I know
what
what
we're
I-
asking better than most people.
Exactly. And that's what I'm trying to answer.
Yes.
That some of these things were not done. And the reason why I think the president saw it fit that some of these things be done now is the reason why also some of us are very humbled to actually be having the opportunity to do them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So are we saying that the money was also previously available, but just it wasn't used for the purpose it was intended?
I think that's for the Auditor General and the people who look at the budget and the Senate and,
All right, let me stretch my luck a little bit, Dr. Luga, and I now ask for your opinion as a man who was
Previously-
who oversaw a national union
As a medic.
as a medic. Okay,
Yes, yes.
are we then saying that what we're seeing happening in Nairobi can also happen in other counties?
Yes.
Because the problem of inadequate health facilities and inadequate healthcare provision is not a province also of Nairobi. Nairobi is just huge, it's a capital, so things stand out. But other counties have similar problem.
One of the things that I think for me I am very proud of is the fact that the professionals can have the ability to apply themselves and actually work and just work for 190. And I think that's what most of us want to do.
So coming back now to these 24 new units that you're going to put up, and Nduh had asked this question of resourcing in terms of human capital. How many new healthcare workers do you expect to employ for this?
I mentioned that the Public Service Commission already approved and the Director General already directed that NMS will get 256 new staff, health staff,
All right.
including 26 doctors and 32 clinical officers and then almost 121 nurses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Will this be
So
good
it's
capacity
quite
to
big.
serve these
Yeah.
facilities?
Well, one of the things, going back to your question, is that the resources are not limitless. But you must start somewhere, and we are going to start with what is functional. What can at least make services be provided to all these facilities.
Okay. So we accept that this is the reality of where we are, the reality in terms of how much we can afford will accord us 256 new healthcare workers to serve in this Nairobi Metropolitan. What is the optimum number? Best case scenario, how many healthcare workers should Nairobi be having?
We've done all of this, and we are still in discussions, of course, to even look at a better assessment in terms of HR requirements. Yeah, so the number, of course, is huge. If you look at the WHO ratios, we are not doing very well as a country, not just in Nairobi. So the gap is quite huge. Even if you double the number of health workers, they will all be still utilized.
But I'm asking this specifically because I would imagine, and I think if I remember correctly, you have mentioned the number before. I mean, for the population of Nairobi, what is the best number of healthcare facilities and healthcare workers that would be able to adequately serve this city? We understand. We are not talking about, the government has failed now. No, we're just looking at best case scenario, which can build a case towards achieving that best case scenario.
I think the numbers are off my mind as of now. I may have to refer so that because there are those calculations of the WHO ratio. But I can tell you for sure that even if you doubled the number of health workers, we would still not be at the recommended international ratios. But I've mentioned also that, and you have been asking about it, the issue of resource. So, you progressively move. So you come from 3,300 workers, you add another 400, and then, because development is also progress. Yeah.
Okay. We also have an influx. I mean, just COVID. Because we have some questions on COVID as well and how this is also going to be managed. But before we go to that, but when we had the curfews still quite heavy and the restriction of movement within from county to county, we had certain cases of individuals who wanted or felt the need to come into Nairobi to be able to get those specialized services that they needed. Now, would Nairobi then still, even with this new or with this added capacity that is being introduced now, apart from serving the people of Nairobi, still seen as a service point for other counties that don't have the services that they need?
Of course, Nairobi has a high concentration of the specialized services, and we also have to appreciate that these services are not in other counties. So you also cannot deny other counties and other citizens. Fundamentally, and this is now a personal conviction for me, in that healthcare is right. So if someone cannot get it somewhere, yes, of course, everyone should strive. I mean, every county should strive to develop their services to make sure that they respond to the needs of their people. But if that service is found in Nairobi, I think it's just human to, have people access the service if it's available.
Doc, we want to take another quick break so we can take a look at traffic and then continue this conversation. Now, we will, of course, steer the conversation towards managing COVID-19 and the spread of COVID-19. We still know that Nairobi is shall we call it the epicenter of COVID-19 spread in the country, and what the NMS is doing to help the government and the Ministry of Health in its effort to contain this particular pandemic within the Nairobi Metropolitan. We are speaking with Dr. Muga. He's the Chief Officer of Health in the Nairobi Metropolitan Services. Provision of healthcare services to the residents of Nairobi County is our discussion this morning. Just keep it right here. We'll be back shortly. It's now 27 minutes to 8 o'clock.
Yeah, so that's the thing. A lot of people are saying they wish they'd have woken up earlier to face the drama that is playing out currently on Thika Road and as well as Mombasa Road. It's moving very slowly, but and that's only moving very well towards Thika. If you're coming into Nairobi today, there's a problem. As you get to the Pangani underpass, you're going to have to wait quite a bit and move just a little. As you go forward, you're going to be in traffic. So there's also traffic jam on Mombasa Road as well, and this started as far back as the Way Bridge. We also know that the fog is compounding issues this morning, so visibility is low and people are moving a lot slower. If we look at Limuru Road coming into the city, the fog is very, very low. So this means everybody's moving a lot slower until some can't even see the vehicles in front of them. Moving outside of the city, it's even worse. So what are we saying at this point, guys? Just be careful. We'll let you know where there's a clog up in other areas as well. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see. We want to keep it moving, but we want to be safe.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done
Conversation
right.
continues. In the room
94.4
is
Spice
Eric
FM,
Latiff, Nduh Okoh,
Nairobi.
and CT Muga. And joining us on the line is Dr. Charles Muga, Chief Officer of Health in the Nairobi Metropolitan Service.
When these projects are completed, I believe that by that time the population of Nairobi will also have increased. What are the plans of the Nairobi Metropolitan Service or the County of Nairobi to ensure that their health programs, plans, and development agenda meets the ever-increasing population of Nairobi?
Every hospital has what is called the hospital development plan, which looks at the way the hospital is envisioned to serve the population that's around it, or what we call the catchment population. So every single facility usually is built with an expansion plan, and there's usually not just expansion in terms of physical infrastructure, but also in terms of services and the scale of it. So if any government, I think, should look at what was the hospital envisioned to do, and they usually it takes care of what you're talking about, the population increase.
But we're talking about the hospitals in Nairobi. I believe that the Nairobi Metropolitan Service, now you have access to the plans for each of these 102 facilities within Nairobi. So what is the plan? And, from an overall perspective, what is the plan?
Yeah, the plan is to make sure that the population population demands are met over time, and that's why you see you are even calling this ambitious, but for us it's not very ambitious. Just what we have to do. Yeah,
Dr. Muga, it actually is ambitious when you consider that these services, for the sort of action that we are now seeing or witnessing to take place, it means, and we've accepted that there was neglect. There's something that ought to have been done was not done. All I'm asking is that so that this doesn't recur, these plans because the plans, it's not that as though the plans were never there. The plans are always there. But how will we ensure that the health needs of those who live within this particular county are met? That's really what I'm asking.
That's a governance question, and that's a governance question for the whole country. Yeah, so it's a question of us as a people.
No, it isn't, Dr. It is a question that someone in your position is actually in a position to say, generally, this is what we are thinking.
No, I can answer, for example, for the Directorate of Health now at the Nairobi Metropolitan Services, in terms of as long as we exist, this is what we're going to do, and to make sure that those plans are implemented, make sure that we are progressively meeting the demands of the population. And that's as far as I can answer.
Wouldn't there be plans, for example, to put in place now when you're in office to ensure that even as a new administration takes over, maybe the NMS or county government or whatever structure is going to be managing healthcare in Nairobi, is able just to take and replicate and progress?
I borrowed from, for example, the plans the country has. Even Africa has plans up to 2063, and there are plans up to 2020. And we ourselves, as the health director, we have our strategic plan in terms of what we are looking at, and what I've told you, that the development plans for hospitals that are going, all the way up to 2025, some up to 2030. But if other people do not have the priority of following these things, then, it's upon the citizens now.
It's upon the citizens to... Sorry, I need you... I felt like you were hanging on something there. It's upon the citizens to
do what?
To do what, Dr. Muga?
To stay healthy.
To prevent disease, or...
You know what I'm saying.
No, I would actually like you to expound on that just a little bit so that I can...
What I'm saying is that we can only respond for ourselves in terms of what we are responsible for.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. If we can look at COVID a little bit now, I mean, as Eric had alluded to earlier, definitely Nairobi is the area that is getting hardest hit in terms of infections. What is the capacity of the services being offered at county to take care of the high numbers that we are seeing reportedly every day?
Yeah, so Nairobi again has the misfortune of being the epicenter of COVID-19, and nearly 60% of all the cases. We now have almost 16,000 cases, and in Nairobi, of course, a number have recovered. And we've been trying to respond to the scourge. Again, there's a lot of challenges, not just in the health sector, but also with the way the Nairobi is structured. As we've already mentioned, the sanitation access in the informal settlements. And that's the first thing that I think NMS did, was to try and make sure everyone accesses water. Because as we were talking about hand washing, soap, with, it was not accessible. So I think through our other departments, there was a concerted effort to do 51 boreholes. I think there were a number of bowsers that were distributing water for free. And I think many Nairobians can attest to that fact now, especially in the informal settlements. And for us as health, we also decided to put in very stringent public health measures, even including the sanitation points or what we call hand wash points in the informal settlements with the soap and water with the support of UNICEF. And I think it has largely been very effective. Nairobi has a very huge population. So when you're talking about 16,000, it looks like a lot. But also if you look at 4 million people with another 3 million coming in and out of Nairobi almost every day, then it's not as big as it looks in terms of population ratio. And also the fact that Nairobi in itself is not a very expansive in terms of land size county. So you find the buses are crowded, the many service points, including supermarkets. So the interactions are also quite a lot. So one of the things we have also really embarked on is health promotion in terms of engaging with communities and really at the community level, what communities can do. And we've seen a lot of uptake on that. Because on the other side of mitigation, where we are looking at isolation, where we are looking at treatment, it is important to be prepared. But I can tell you for sure that the facilities in Nairobi, whether they are national government, whether they are private, whether they are run by NMS, will never ever be enough for an expanding critical care requirement, especially because of COVID. So it is very important that we engage more on the public health prevention side, and then now the people who really deserve hospital care can have that care. But in terms of isolation, we've also engaged with institutions, and so we are running treatment centers at Mbagathi, but we are also running isolation facilities. Isolation means that you're asymptomatic. I mean, you're COVID positive, you're asymptomatic, but you are not able to isolate at home because we usually assess the homes and look at whether it meets the criteria. So the criteria for home-based isolation is a healthcare worker-based decision. It's not the decision of the person. And so if those who do not meet that criteria, we isolate them in our isolation facilities, which now we have the support of Ministry of Health, also to use KMTC. We have the support of Ministry of Education to use a few schools.
So are you saying that those who have been released or who've been given the go-ahead to manage COVID at home are actually being checked on in terms of their living premises,
Yes.
one to one, everybody, and making sure that those facilities are adequate, everyone?
Yes, in fact, one of the things that I have been very proud of are our teams that are doing home-based isolation, and I think that we owe it to them. They have been doing an amazing job, And I'm not saying that because we're in charge of them. I'm saying that because citizens themselves, and you've seen this in media interviews, people saying, I was called by NMS. It's not NMS that has been saying it. And these are people at home.
Yep.
We call them, we give them the message of what they need to do when they're at home. We constantly check on them if they're developing a fever or symptoms. And we do that for every single person who is on home-based isolation. And we have 105 officers whose work is nothing other than checking on people on home-based isolation.
All right. It's true that we've heard people saying that they've been called. Last week, we spoke to one person who is a regular guest on this show, and her name is Njeri Thorne. She told us that she had been in isolation for 23 days by then, and she had never received any call from NMS or anybody regarding her status. By then, she spoke to us 2 days later and said that on the 25th day, she got a call. Now, how would we say that that is managing home-based care if you are being called 25 days into your test?
No, we try our best to call every single person. But I'll tell you a challenge that was there before that I think has now been sorted. What was happening is that a few people who were getting their tests from the private facilities, the private facilities were not giving us the data and the information.
Right.
Okay.
And this is now what has been sorted. So we through the Ministry of Health, have demanded that every single facility must submit. And this is what was happening. So those people who are being missed, perhaps they were either testing in a private lab or in a private facility, and then they go home, and then we do not have their information. But this is the minority rather than the majority.
So what you're saying is that on a daily basis, when the Ministry of Health is announcing the number of new cases captured in the last 24 hours, Nairobi gets the bulk of this. So we're talking about 400 and above only in Nairobi. With a staff of 105 who are managing the home-based care and isolation and everything, how then are you telling me that these 105 people are the ones who are expected to call the 400 people, new people every day?
Yeah, you just divide the numbers.
All right. So if then we say that one person ideally should only call 4 people.
But sometimes they call up to 20, 30 people.
So how is it then possible that you still end up with having many people who say they haven't received a call? Yes, there are those that will say that they've received a call, and there are those that haven't received a call, because we cannot run away from this, Dr. Luga. There are people who don't get calls.
No. I think many have received the calls, and I already mentioned to you the explaining why some people may say that they never received the calls. But in reality and in practice, every single person on the COVID-19 registry for Nairobi has received a call. And yes.
There's something else that you said, that the home-based isolation is not a decision of the patient, it's a decision of the healthcare personnel.
Yes.
So is it the same 105 people who are going to call and then visit these people?
Not necessarily. There's another team that does the assessment of whether you qualify for home-based isolation, and of course it's done very seamlessly in terms of it's a very smooth effort.
How many people are in this new team that is supposed to do the visits and the assessment?
The assessment is about 34. It's 2 per sub-county.
So ideally,
but they are also being supported by the national team. Remember that there is also a whole team at the Ministry of Health, what we call the command center.
How many?
So they are working. That's not for us because it's managed by the Ministry of Health. But we ourselves have put 34 other officers to help that national team.
I'm putting the question to you, Dr. Oluga, because I'd like just to get to the bottom of this. Let's assume that 400 people.
You've already got to the bottom of it.
Not yet. 400 people have received their test results today, and they've been told you have tested positive for COVID-19. Now,
Yes.
I'm assuming that from that point, the next thing is determination of whether this person needs to go into an isolation facility or whether they can isolate at home. This determination can only be done by these 34 people from the NMS plus the other team from the
There are more
health.
than that. So I'm talking about
NMS
our
34 plus the other team from the Ministry of Health, the national team.
Yes.
Ideally, after I receive a call today telling me that I've tested COVID positive, how long should I wait for this assessment to be done so that I know whether I am moving from my home and going to an isolation facility and be told which one this is, or whether I shall stay in my home? How many days
But-
should it take before this determination is made?
You know, there is first of all, when you test for COVID and you become positive, there's what is called disclosure. So the first call you get or an email is the disclosure in terms of your result.
Okay.
The second call you get, or it may be combined with the first call, is usually about case investigation. So case investigation asks you about your other contact,
Yep.
and it asks you about those conditions of where you live and all those kind of things. So there's case investigation. So part of that case investigation is a criteria of where you stay, your other circumstances, whether you are symptomatic or not symptomatic, you know. Who else did you come into contact with that should be contacted? And these are the people that are called contacts. And once you do the case investigation, then now there's a team that now goes to do case evaluation in terms of now confirming
Yep.
this person told us that they stay in Langata. Do they stay in Langata? And there's a whole new intelligence system that is even beyond us now, also to confirm that.
So back to the question. So how long should it
Yes.
take before this determination is made that,
it
Eric,
us-
you can stay at home
you know,
or you need to go to isolation?
From disclosure to isolation usually is about 24 hours. Sometimes if it delays, 48. But 24 hours at the maximum. Many people have had to make the decision. In fact, at the point of the first call, whether they are going for what we call community isolation or hospital isolation or home-based isolation.
The cases are rising as we speak. I mean, I think we're looking at an average, between 400 to 700 cases. Now, this is where this has happened, and still having not reached the indicated peak of September or maybe further. Is NMS in this area ready for a spike? Should that happen? Should it be that the numbers increase significantly more than where we are today? Are we ready to handle these numbers?
We're trying to do everything we can to be ready for the spike. But what is most important, and I think, I don't know whether citizens are tired of the messaging, but we really shouldn't be begged to take care of each other. And that's really the point. We really have to stop whatever we are calling the spike. And at some point, I think this happens in a pandemic. People normalize things, and then it becomes like this is a government disease. It's not. It's actually individuals. And if you speak to the people who have been affected, whether they have been at home or at hospital, it's real. And I wish all our citizens in Nairobi would just understand that it takes some effort to take care of themselves and to take care of the other person. And yes, some of us, majority actually, we may not be so much affected, we may be asymptomatic, we may not get to hospital. But for that one person who will get to hospital, who will need critical care, who will need a doctor, I mean, it's not a pleasant experience, even if they don't lose their life. But now for the people who will lose their lives, it's even very sad. So we should just, care amongst ourselves to just follow those protocols that the Ministry of Health keeps putting on our faces every day.
On that, we completely agree with you, Dr. Oluga, that everybody has got to play their part. And where there is personal responsibility, then the person ought to take their responsibility as well, because this information has been shared. On the front of information sharing for what you need to do to avoid COVID-19, that information has been shared. On the part of what you need to do, should you test positive for COVID-19, Dr. Oluga, this is information that you ought to share better.
All right. Yeah, we take that challenge, and yes, we've been trying to engage at the community level. We've really engaged. We have 5,100.
We live in communities. We haven't been reached.
Yes.
In different communities, the three of us.
I think you live in the studio. We will try and reach you in the studio.
It's a community.
It's a community. However you choose to look at it.
Yeah, point taken. We will engage. But I do agree with you that risk communication is still there's still a lot of potential to engage every citizen in terms of what you need to do when you're COVID positive. Also the support that is available, whether it's psychological support or hospital support or treatment support. And even there are other support systems that are being done by development organizations such as the World Food Program. They've been trying to assist families that are unable to meet basic food requirements during this pandemic. We've had a number of other families that when the breadwinner goes on isolation, they have to be supported. And we've engaged with the COVID-19 fund and the regional the security agency, the regional commissioner's office, to try and support some of these families, especially in Kibra, in Madare. When we take the breadwinner for isolation, sometimes the family has to be supported for another 14 days or so, just to meet their requirements, because you also need them to isolate it because they are contacts. So some of these challenges is what makes Nairobi quite a hard nut to crack when it comes to COVID, because you find that the person who has become positive must go to work in industrial area every single day because they earn as a casual.
Yep.
So when you're removing them, you also have to now take care of their family. And it makes the whole response for COVID quite a difficult thing and very different from the rural counties.
True.
Yeah, but we are doing it, yeah.
Dr. Oluga, thank you very much for speaking to us today. And we wish you all the best as you continue serving the Nairobi residents from the Nairobi Metropolitan Services. So we have just heard from the Daktari in terms of what the county government is doing. I mean, not the county government, but the Nairobi Metropolitan Services. They are doing in terms of managing this. There's still a lot of work to be done, especially in communicating what they're doing. There's still a lot of work to be done in terms of coordinating, because he has dodged that question and he got there, and I think the answer is pretty clear that coordination from the point you test positive to the point of managing the cases is wanting.
There's no set. It's
not seamless, as he says.
There's no determination that it's going to take you, that if I find that you're positive at this time and we've determined your living condition and all of this, that this is the time that you will go into isolation at home or in a facility.
Indeed. Coming to the top of the hour, CT, today's proverb.
Today's proverb: he who holds another in the mud must stay in the mud to keep him down.
He who holds another in the mud must stay in the mud to keep him down.
If you're holding someone in the mud, you're also in the mud.
Asante
If you want that person to stay in the mud, you will also have to stay in the mud.
So let go of the person and get out of the mud. It's never that serious. Good morning. It's 8 o'clock.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Still experiencing some problems
Traffic.
on the road this morning. It's not as clear as you'd hope it would be at this time. It's dragging along, guys. Hopefully that will open up. We are right in the middle of traffic hour, as we say. And on Mombasa Road, also moving very slowly this morning. We expected it to be a little bit better. It would be day 4 in terms of Mombasa Road madness. Hopefully it's a little bit more sane today, but we're going to have to wait and see what happens. It's been 9 hours of traffic every day since Monday on Mombasa Road. Hopefully we can aim for a little bit less today, don't you think? I do. All right, let's look at a specific road. The Limuru to Goni Road already experienced 5 accidents this week. If you're out of the city, please be very careful, guys. I know it's lonely roads, but shouldn't give in to the temptation of going faster than the speed of light. Spice FMKE on Twitter. That's how you can reach us.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Nduh Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Into The Situation Room right here on Spice FM, broadcasting on 97.7 in Malindi, Eldoret 96.7, 96.0 in Nakuru, Njeri 90.9, Kisumu 102.5, 87.9 in Mombasa, 94.4 in Nairobi, and live streaming the show to the world on www.spicefm.co.ke, as well as Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. What day is it today, Nduh?
So today is World Organ Donor Day, right? It's observed every year on the 13th of August, and really looking at what it means when people are motivated to donate their healthy and precious organs after death or even while alive to save lives, right? So we're trying to create awareness about the huge population that dies due to organ failure around the world, and making families aware of what they can do to eliminate the fears and myths that people have in their mind around organ donation, and to say that it could be life-changing for many, to realize that you could donate and still live a very well-fulfilled life, that it's possible. I mean, and also wrapping our minds around the ideas that even our loved ones who may have passed away could be very, very good donors, even in death, for people who may actually need that life-saving intervention. And that's one thing that I think, if we look at it, especially on the continent, it's not something that has resonated very well or sunk at all, that my loved one could actually give up their organs, or have their organs used for the saving of life of someone else. We find that in other countries, you would find that it's actually something that's encouraged, that say, all right, we know that this person has passed. It's possible that their organs be given to save somebody else's life. The legislation around organ donation in Kenya also is very interesting, and I think we'll be having that conversation now in terms of how far it has gone, in terms of, what has really been taken into consideration here. The story of this is carried in the Standard today on the World Organ Donation Day. Giving half your liver, for example, to save a brother, and they're still both alive and going strong. It's something that's not often talked about. It's something that's not often considered. But if you look at the loss of life as a result of the failure to get proper donations, is actually something that is quite quite high, quite considerable. Organ donation and transplant is governed by the Health Act of 2017 in Kenya, and it provides that individuals can donate their organs upon their death by expressing their wishes in their wills in the presence of 2 competent witnesses. The law neither provides for living donations, nor does it mention a donor consent system. Though a significant step towards advancing organ donation and transplantation in the country, the legislation also fails to provide for vital definitions such as that of death, which is pivotal in this field. And according to, the legal minds, shortage of organs has escalated organ trade, which is illegal in Kenya, and attracts a fine not exceeding 10 million shillings or imprisonment for a period not exceeding 10 years or both.
That's the legal aspect of it. But why is it that it is an issue? Why do people have a problem with donating organs? Even when it is clear that they are no longer alive on this planet, and so they don't particularly need, or do they think they actually need those organs, even when they are not alive?
I think there's a whole understanding of this from cultural perspective, from very many other sides.
Religious?
Even
Sacred,
religious. If you just think about, so you even said that, yes, increasingly we are seeing that when people, family members need organ transplant, they will get from their own family, right? So somebody will come up and say, okay, my brother needs a kidney, so I've got to do something about it. But beyond that, beyond your own direct relation, zero chances. Well, 0 point something chances, but zero.
Very difficult.
It's very hard for you to actually hear someone saying, there's a patient who's at Kenyatta National Hospital and they need a liver transplant. And somebody just thinks, maybe I can help. Whereas in other jurisdictions, in other countries, we read about this. We see stories about this. Someone saying that a relative of theirs passed away, or a relative of theirs donated an organ, which ended up helping somebody in a completely different state or far-flung area. And they were meeting a couple of years later saying, oh, I'm the one who actually had donated a kidney that helped you.
It's interesting because the public system then encourages, because then you would see that basically in the system, on your identification, for example, I'm using the United States as an example here, that it is clear if this individual is an organ donor, would be an organ donor. So in the event of their death, it's without question that that they had already said that they would be an organ donor, and so they know that they can harvest those organs and then keep them either in a bank or use them at that point for somebody else. So it's kind of like when it
so they
sounds
go to
like
that
it's
point
simplifying
where
it, but it's there and it's clear that all right, you would know in advance of time that I would donate my organs.
For us to get there, then the government has to play a big role.
Huge.
And the community, so that the government can convince the citizens, and then the citizens can start looking at it from a different angle. Like you're saying, CT, I think the whole issue of even culture and religion. The question of somebody just being cremated is an issue. Somebody expressing a will that when I die, I'd like to be cremated, and it becomes a whole completely different story. Or it is because of the Mzungu wife who came and confused. These things, we have seen them.
You see, COVID is now making it possible with some communities to accept that you can actually bury someone who has passed away within the general locale of where they live.
Yeah.
Prior to that, there are communities, such as the one I come from, where when you passed away, you had to be buried at home. Had to. It's not as though that has gone away. No, it's still an issue. So why is it that people feel that they must be buried at home? Or why must they be buried at their ancestral home? See, these are things that perhaps need to be discussed and talked about and understood. Because there is some validity to the discussion and argument, and there are reasons why people have held certain views as sacrosanct. There are reasons, very sound reasons. But again, they must be talked about in order for them to be understood.
Let's get this, first-hand story from somebody who I'm sure has dealt with families and patients who've come and they need this. And then, maybe they've even sat there as they observed family members making that decision. This is the head of the renal and transplant unit at the MP Shah Hospital, Dr. Hussein M. Baga. Good morning, Dr. Baga.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for speaking to us. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be there.
Dr. you've heard our introduction. I mean, this is a topic that to very many Kenyans is not a topic that we want to discuss. But we must discuss it.
Okay, it is a topic that very many people want to avoid discussing, but I believe that in this current day and age, it's a topic that is very, very important, and it has to be discussed, and we have to break down the myth that is there about the organ transplantation.
Why don't we just start from there? Just explain the importance of us having this discussion.
Okay, so I'm sure that all of us, or most of us, at one point or another, have come across either family members within the nuclear family or the extended family, or friends who have had their kidneys failing, or they have been diagnosed with severe heart failure or liver failure. And especially for the kidneys, because the government has done a lot of work for end-stage kidney disease patients and chronic kidney disease patients, we have this dialysis systems that have been set up in place, which have been covered by the National Hospital Insurance Fund. So when your kidneys fail, you are basically put on dialysis, and you do your dialysis at a minimum twice a week. So you have to be in the hospital or the dialysis unit twice a week for a minimum of 4 hours. So you can imagine arriving at the hospital, waiting for your turn, being put on the machine. So technically, almost half of your day goes in the hospital. That's twice a week that you do that. And you come out feeling a bit more tired. Of course, it is very beneficial to you. And then subsequently, your doctor will tell you that, yes, now the only way out is basically for you to get a new kidney from a donor. And now this is when the issue starts, because you have to go around looking for somebody, and we only allow currently for the related living donors. So somebody who has to be related to you, who is the same blood group as you, or who can donate blood to you, who will be safe for him as or her to donate, will be the one who will be selected to donate the organ to you.
Why must it be somebody who's related to you?
Well, you see, currently we don't have any laws governing the non-related living donors. We do allow emotionally related living donors, which is like a spouse donating to the husband or wife. But because of the risk of exploitation and the risk of organ trafficking, since we don't have any robust laws and legal frameworks in place, the National Association felt that it would be opening up to exploitation if you allow the non-related living donors. And I'll give you an example. It has happened several times that somebody comes in and says that, I want to sell my organ. Is anybody willing to buy it?
Wow.
Yes. I mean, I've had phone calls like that. And I've told them point blank that, look, this is even illegal to talk about it, that you want to sell your organ.
Have you ever sought to understand their motivation for wanting to sell their organ?
The main motivation, of course, is financial. I mean, with this economic crunch that is going on, and even before that, a lot of people are thinking that this is a quick way out. And this is what used to happen in other countries as well. Somebody would be offered something like 20 or 50,000 shillings, and they would sell their organ. I mean, they'd be told that, you can survive with one kidney, or part of your liver, and people would be okay with it.
Just a few steps back, Dr. Muga, and you talk about the fact that, let me ask a question. What would be the percentage of people who are on dialysis, for example, and have some kind of kidney damage, then who would require a new organ?
Well, when you are on dialysis, dialysis is for two reasons. One is for acute kidney injury, meaning that somebody whose kidneys were healthy, and then they developed some insult like a severe infection, and so temporarily we basically put them on dialysis, but for them there is a chance of recovery. Then there are those who have got chronic kidney disease and progress to the end-stage kidney disease. Now, for them, they have to be on dialysis for life. And remember, dialysis comes with its own complications as well, because one is that you need to have an access for dialysis, either a catheter or what is called an arteriovenous fistula, because remember that we are removing blood from the body. It goes into the machine, which is called a surrogate kidney. The blood is cleaned, and then it is returned back to the body. Now, all of this, basically, studies have actually shown that the dialysis has got a poorer outcome as compared to somebody who gets a kidney transplant. So what we as nephrologists strive to do is that we always talk to our patients and tell them that this dialysis is supposed to be a stopgap measure while we get a transplant for them.
So,
as long as they get a donor and they have the finances.
okay.
Yes.
So the thing is, as we're looking at it now, is that there is necessity for transplant. Because if it
Definitely,
is
there's a big
the
necessity.
preferred channel to be able to get somebody healthy again, as you said, this dialysis is just something to slow down the deterioration of some of these organs. For example, and we're just talking about kidneys. I mean, we look at other things like lungs and liver and etc.
Exactly.
So if you see that from an expert's point of view, because you understand this as nephrologists,
Yes.
shouldn't there be some kind of push or pull that would even actually touch on legislation to begin to accept the fact that this is a necessity when it comes to improving health?
Yes, so basically, like as you mentioned in your introduction, that we do have the organ transplant bill that's supposed to be tabled now to the parliament. And I think the Kenya Renal Association has been working together with one of our esteemed lawyers, Elizabeth, in terms of coming up with a bill so that it can be tabled in front of the parliament, and then we see how to go about it. But what you said is right, that there is a necessity for organ transplantation. Now, there are two types, as you mentioned. Okay, there is a living organ donor transplantation, and then there's something called a deceased organ donor transplantation. Now, even people who do have relatives who are willing to donate, they have to undergo a rigorous test process to make sure that the donor is safe for them to donate the kidney. It's not that we remove a kidney from a donor and then after 2, 3 years or 5 years, the donor gets end-stage kidney disease and ends up on dialysis while the recipient is healthy. It doesn't make sense. Our priority is always to the donor in this case. We have to protect the donors.
Okay.
So the best option in this case is basically a deceased donor organ program. Because one is that in my practice, I've seen a lot of times when the relatives come with their people who want to donate, they are disqualified because either they have diabetes or they have pre-existing conditions which even they were not aware of.
Right.
So we cannot allow them to go ahead, and it becomes very disappointing for the patient who is a potential recipient to be eventually told that no, now this process has come to a halt because your potential donor is not suitable for you to donate.
Okay. But now I have to go back on this, and I'm going to drum on it a little bit, because
no problem.
From a medical expert's point of view, you understand the necessity of this, right? And now I want to hear, how then would you be able to convince? I mean, there's the legislative part of it where there could be clamor and push from medical practitioners across the board, because you see the problems that are brought to your offices every day.
Yes.
From a cultural and self-acceptance point of view, how do you think then it would be possible to get people into the thinking that they could actually donate their organs and save somebody else's life? Donate part of their organs up to somebody who's not necessarily your relative, or be an organ donor in the unfortunate event of death. How can we change what would be, or even start to get people to think differently?
Yes, so there is a very, very important point that you have raised, because a lot of people have this cultural belief that once when they die, the only way that they can be accepted in the hereafter is if they are intact. Like the organs are all intact, they have 2 kidneys, 2 lungs, 1 heart. I mean, it is considered to be an abomination in most cultures, even to get a post-mortem done. Hello?
Yep, go ahead.
So it is very, very difficult to even, as I said, to get a post-mortem done. You see, because there are sometimes we are required by the law when somebody passes on in the hospital or is brought in dead, that they have to undergo a post-mortem to find the cause of death. And several cultures and several religions actually do not allow it. Okay, and which is a myth, because I'm a Muslim and I come from the Islamic culture, and we have talked to several religious leaders. Including even in South Africa where I trained, and including even in London where I've done my MRC in nephrology. And there's a lot of myth about the fact that you are not allowed to donate. Yes, you are allowed to donate as long as it is to help somebody, and you have identified somebody that this is the person that I'm going to donate for. So one way of doing it is basically involving the religious communities, the religious leaders as well. Okay. Once when we can show them and convince them the benefits that you are basically going to be saving a life, and in all religions and in all cultures, it's there that if you are going to save somebody's life, then you should go ahead and do it. Yes. Number two, the media should play a key role in terms of creating awareness about organ donation, and especially organ donation after death. Yes. So what happens is people have this misconception that once when we remove organs, the body is just going to be left open and grotesque, and but we don't do that, because I participated in South Africa where I trained. We used to have a lot of deceased donor organ patients who benefited from it, and we used to harvest or get the organs, and we would do it in a very polite and how shall I put it, so that we don't humane way. Yes, let me put it that way. That's the word, the humane way. And by the time that we are done, the body is basically stitched back and it's very presentable. But those are the myths that people have, that once they remove the organ, it's just left like that open, and they're supposed to come and pick it and do their own things and try to make it more presentable. But no, that is not what happens, unfortunately. So it is basically the media that is supposed to help us to disseminate this information. The religious leaders, we need to bring them to our side and explain to them what exactly the process is. We need to hold more shows like this and take it to the people as well, so that people can basically accept that they'll be helping somebody out.
Dr. Is there a difference between organ donation and tissue donation?
That's a very good question. So an organ is things like basically kidneys, lungs, heart. A tissue is like blood is considered to be a tissue, cornea is considered to be a tissue. So we do this tissue transplantation, like in the hospital I work in, through the help of Lions Eye Care. There is corneal transplantation for patients who do agree. Yes. And for the tissues, normally there's not much of an issue because the relatives tend to agree more readily.
And why do you think this is so? Because it is still part of your body.
Yeah, so you see, because of the fact that you're not kind of, in quotes, mutilating a body, it's just basically removing the cornea, just the upper portion, and the relatives are shown that this is what is going to happen. Most of them tend to agree for it.
From your experience, Dr. When patients come to you and you can determine that they need a transplant, I imagine that the next step you take is to bring the family together and explain to them what is required. What is usually the reaction of family members, especially when they know that the way to save their kin is by one of them donating an organ? What do they go through, in terms of emotionally, even in their decision making on who is it that's going to try and be identified as a donor?
Well, there are two aspects to it. Yeah? One is basically when you're starting the patient on dialysis. I mean, that by itself is a challenge and a huge emotional roller coaster for the patient and the family. Yeah. Because, even breaking the news to them that the kidneys have failed and they need to be on dialysis permanently, by itself is quite a challenge for them to accept. So this is what we start off with, and once when they have accepted the dialysis and they're seeing the benefits of the dialysis, then subsequently we assess the patient, and once when we determine that it is safe for the recipient to undergo a transplant, then now I broach up the subject and explain to them that, look, now we need to consider a transplant. And now, subsequently, I tell them to bring the immediate family members, and I talk to them. And, of course, again, there is that shock because people are still clinging on to straws that, yes, the kidneys will recover. Yes, I do explain to them that, yes, I mean, in a very small percentage of patients, there are some patients whom I've seen after 3-4 months, their kidneys start functioning again. There's one that I had for after 1 year, she started opening up and the kidneys did start, but this is very, very rare. So once when I talk to them about the transplant, again, it's another emotional roller coaster because now it is the donors, the potential donors who now have to accept that, yes, one of them might have to do it.
Yeah.
And of course, I tell them from the word go that it is voluntary. It is strictly voluntary. Nobody can coerce anybody to donate the kidneys. Nobody can coerce them in terms of financial gains or threatening them in any way. Because if we detect any sense or any hint that something like this is going on, then we put a stop to it immediately.
What I'm trying to establish is the kind of reaction that you see them getting at that point when they have to decide to be the donors. Now, I'm talking about now the potential donors themselves.
Yes. So
What
I
is
do
it that they
I-
go through by the time they accept that, okay, I am going to put myself up as a potential donor?
I mean, there are two groups. There's one that is basically in disbelief and in shock. I mean, and you can actually see it on their faces that when I tell them that, this gentleman or this lady is going to require a kidney, and in Kenya we normally do a related living donor transplantation. So it has to be a relative. So people are just silent for a few minutes as they're taking it in, and you can see that they are in a state of shock as well.
Yeah.
One is that because they were expecting their loved ones to recover completely, but now that they know that it's not, and now that we're going into the transplantation aspect, they are still in a state of disbelief. So what I do is that I just explain to them the process of the transplantation and the fact that somebody who donates can stay with the one kidney for the rest of their life.
Have you
Very, very
encountered
healthy.
cases, Dr. where you call the family members and you've told them this is what we need to do, but then you see that cases where people don't come back to you?
Yes, it has happened.
In terms of percentages, how often do you see this?
I would say around 10 to 20% of the people actually back out. So what I tend to do is that my first this thing is to talk to the patient himself alone. My strategy is so to explain to him that, look, this is what is required. And then I tell him that, look, what I want you to do is to bring the people whom you feel will be more willing to donate and to help you. And so the patient goes and talks to his or her family members, and the ones who tend to agree, they will come to see me with the recipient, and then we talk to them at length about the process. And this takes quite a bit of time. It can take even an hour, because I explain to them exactly what is entailed, how it is going to affect the donor's health. Can the donor, like especially for the female, the potential donors, the first question they ask me is, will they be able to conceive and give birth? Will they, and also of course they will ask, I mean all of them will ask whether they will get kidney failure and will they end up on dialysis? And I tell them, I mean, they will not end up on dialysis as long as they're careful, just like any other patient, because we have patients who are born with only one kidney, and it's only found incidentally as well, and they live their life fully healthy, and they never get any kidney problems.
We'll go into a break shortly, Doctor, and just before we do that, dovetailing from this particular conversation, if you compare the decision-making process and the time it takes for families to make the decision that they're going to be organ donors in this country, compare the same with South Africa where you've practiced and the UK where you trained. Is there a difference?
Yeah, there is a difference. Actually, for South Africa and Kenya, it is almost very similar because we have the similar cultural beliefs. If you look at our people and the South African people, we have the similar cultural beliefs, and they all believe that you're not supposed to remove your organs and give them out, because in case now when you go to meet your maker, he will always ask you and there'll be problems in the hereafter. So it's very, very similar. Even for the related living donors, it is very, very similar as well. But it is much more acceptable in the UK. So in the UK, their population is much more readily acceptable for both the deceased donor organ as well as the related living donors.
Dr. Hussein Baga is the head of the renal and transplant unit at the MP Shah Hospital. He's speaking to us today. Today being what day is it?
World Organ Donor Day.
World Organ Donor Day. take a quick break. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads and also in terms of weather, and then we continue this conversation with the doctor. If you've got any questions on the issue of organ donation, remember he's telling us that this is in the country, it's governed by law, and this is the Health Act of 2017, and it only allows for related living donor transplantation. If you've got any questions, you can post your questions on Spice FM KE, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and you'll also be able to call in at some point on 0719 012 600. Keep it right here, it's 8:30.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. The weather with
All right,
Spice.
it's a heavy fog in most parts of Nairobi, and it's going to remain this way for most parts of the day, and the likelihood that rain will come in later to throw a spanner in the works is very high. Highs of 24 and lows of 13 is what we're going to experience today. In Njeri at 15 degrees, it's cloudy. Thunderstorms expected for later with highs of 22 and lows of 14. It's partly cloudy in Nakuru at 16 degrees, highs of 22 and lows of 13. Also a wet afternoon in the forecast there. Eldoret will have thunderstorms this afternoon with highs of 20 and lows of 12. While it'll be mostly sunny in Kisumu, there will be rains later in the afternoon with highs of 27. Kakamega will experience rains this afternoon with a high of 24 and lows of 10. And Malindi will be partly cloudy for most parts of the day, highs of 28 and lows of 23. We'll experience a high of 28 in Mombasa, where it's partly cloudy at 24 degrees. In Kampala, 19 degrees and mostly cloudy at the moment. Rain expected later in the day, highs of 25 and lows of 18. It's mostly sunny in Dar es Salaam this morning, highs of 29 and lows of 20. And in Joburg at 8 degrees, it's mostly sunny conditions to prevail for the day with highs of 19 and lows of 3. And finally, for now in Lagos, it's partly cloudy at 23 degrees, highs of 29 and lows of 22, with rain forecasted for later.
Traffic.
Okay, the fog seems to be the one thing that's going to compound most traffic problems this morning. From Udhiru to Kikuyu, please drive very safely because the fog is extremely low this morning. Even past 8:30, the sun will not peek out anytime soon. And so this is affecting visibility. Everybody's moving just a little bit slower. We also have construction that's taking place on Wayaki Way, right around the 87, and that has not finished yet. So a lot of problems that are going to affect traffic. Mombasa Road also, the road continues to be quite jam-packed, and we know that there was a lorry that skid on the road this morning, and that is what affected the traffic on North Airport Road, and we're still seeing the effects of that. So traffic everywhere, and not a drop. Well, okay. Spice FM KE on Twitter. That's how you can reach us.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
If you've got any questions
94
for Dr. Hussein Bagal, who is a renal and transplant unit head at the MP Shah Hospital, please post them on Spice FM KE, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. Or also, we'll open up the phone lines at some point on 0719 012 600. We are talking about, organ transplantation, and this is organ donation as well. So in the country, the law is a bit restricted.
Well, I would say it's quite restricted, and maybe Dr. Harry can give us a little bit more of an insight into this. But like we said, this story is carried in the Standard. Well, some of this information is carried in the Standard today on this story. But organ donation and transplant is governed by the Health Act 2017. It's provided for individuals, and they can donate their organs upon their death by expressing their wishes in their wills in the presence of 2 competent witnesses. That's as far as that states. It doesn't provide for living donations, nor does it mention a donor consent system. Though a significant step towards advancing organ donation and transplantation in the country, the legislation fails to provide for vital definitions such as that of their death, which is pivotal in this field, right? Escalated organ trade is illegal in Kenya, and it attracts a fine, like we know, of 10 million shillings and or a prison sentence of 10 years.
Where is it legal in the world?
Well, there are places where you can actually go and say you would like to donate your organs, and they give you and there's a fee. They pay you some money for it.
Like where?
It happens in the
Well, you
United
can sell.
States. Yes, you can.
Is this the case, Dr.
You are not allowed to sell your organs anywhere in the country. In the world, sorry. There are some countries that do allow for non-related living donors, but they have very specific regulations when it comes to that, and you have to show that there's no coercion or there's no exchange of money. So they have their frameworks in place to determine that. I know it's very difficult, and this is among the reasons why we have not yet adopted that until we get the go-ahead from the ministry, and there are some robust laws and legal frameworks available.
But Dr. does it mean, therefore, that if someone wants to donate an organ, they cannot donate an organ even if they're alive?
In Kenya?
So
Yes, in Kenya.
Is that in Kenya, there is something called altruistic donation, whereby, you say that, I want to help anybody out there. And whoever, the thing is that you will not meet the person. So this is what altruistic donation is. So you just do some blood tests, you do your HLA typing and everything, the genetics, and then in countries where altruistic donation is allowed, they already have a bank whereby they have all this information for the potential recipients. And if there's a good match, and then further tests are carried out, and if everything is okay and the donor is going to be potentially okay, then they do allow altruistic donation in that aspect. I know that South Africa has been doing altruistic donations, but so far in Kenya, because of the fact that we don't have the laws, and there's always a risk of exploitation. I'll give an example. Somebody can just come and say that, I want to donate, and he's actually working for the potential recipient. You see, and he's like, I just want to donate because out of the goodwill of my heart. Now, we don't know whether he has been threatened to be laid off, or we don't know whether he has been given some money, or we really won't be able to establish that. And later on, the guy can say that, I was coerced, and now
I want my kidney back.
We all end up in a dilemma, yes.
You see, why I ask the question is this. If we look at our laws, would we say that our laws are just cautious, or would we say that they're restrictive?
Well, I would believe that the laws are very cautious as well, because remember that we in our country, there's a lot of financial constraints a lot of people have. And once when people find out that, you can donate your kidneys, people are going to be exploited quite a bit, because there'll, of course, be middlemen suddenly appearing from somewhere, and they're like, look, we can hook you up with this institution or with this doctor, and you can get like 50,000 shillings for your organ, for your kidney, and you can stay alive with one kidney. They'll be taught, and they will rehearse on how to say and what to say, and as always, we are very smart people.
Indeed we are, for all the wrong reasons. What is the law like in some of these countries where Kenyans go for their transplant operations? For example, what is the law like in India?
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. Now, in India, there has been quite a bit of issues there because of, again, exploitation. So they used to allow the non-related living donors from the international countries, but now they've also put a halt to it as well. And if somebody wants to go and get a transplant done in India, the process has become very rigorous. They need to get a letter from the Ministry of Health stating that the donor and the recipient are related.
Okay.
And then when they reach there, they also undergo a vetting process by their own ministry, the Indian ministry as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the potential donor and the recipients are interviewed separately as well to try and establish that, yes, they are related. And then subsequently they undergo all the tests, and then they are allowed to undergo the process of organ donation.
Does the law allow in India for altruistic donation?
Well, they become very strict now because there was a lot of exploitation that was happening and a lot of organ trafficking that used to happen in India. So they have put a halt to it right now. Even for their own people as well, it's become extremely difficult. I mean, you really have to undergo a vetting process by the ministry, by the state ministry that is there. And even the doctors and everybody has to guarantee that, yes, this is a totally related living donor organ program, or, as I said, emotionally related to the spouse because of the exploitation that used to happen.
Indeed, I'm raising that because, I mean, we have seen many stories. Some of them have been covered on mainstream media, others just circulating on social media, increasing the fears of people going to some of these countries for whatever operation and fearing that when they were, under the knife, some part of them was actually harvested without their consent and they don't even know.
Yes, I think that if you read the news, I think there was this doctor who was subsequently arrested just, I think, a few days ago in India.
Yeah.
Who was actually harvesting organs and then disposing of the bodies in the rivers and stuff. So this used to happen. But I presume that the ministry, I mean, their government has taken very serious steps in terms of trying to prevent that from happening. And personally, I believe that as long as it is a related living donor organ that they want to do, in Kenya we have centers that do it, and our outcomes have been excellent. So going for such things to another country, to a different country, where you are at the mercy of their doctors, their hospitals, I believe that currently we are in a setup and in a place where we can do our own transplants, the kidney transplants at least.
How strong is the Association of Nephrologists in this country?
Yeah, so the Kenya Renal Association has become a very strong body currently, and they're working very closely with the Ministry of Health in terms of providing the renal services and making sure that at least we are getting the legislation, especially for the organ donations as well. And they were instrumental, and we have been instrumental in also helping the government set up dialysis units across all the counties, which was rolled out in 2015. Yeah.
Now, that was part one of my question. Part two, what does the association do to ensure that the common citizenry actually understands what they do, and that they also understand all the wherewithals with regards to safety, with regards to the altruistic aspects of this work, so that when people hear of organ donation, they do not think of, or rather what comes to mind isn't the worst possible case scenario?
Yeah, so especially during the World Kidney Day, which is the World Kidney Week in March, we tend to hold a lot of talks and in all the counties, especially the major counties. Like this year, there was in Nairobi, Mombasa, Eldoret. There's a lot of awareness that is created about the kidneys and kidney health and organ donations as well. We have helped to set up even the donor groups as well, which basically help to disseminate such kind of information. And the Kenya Renal Association also tries to do talks within the media as well. We are advised or we advocate for this kind of chances so that we can educate the population about what is available and what are the risks and everything.
Do you think Kenya is ready for expansion of this law to cover, for example, the altruistic donations?
As long as we are going to put robust measures in place, and we have systems in place to make sure that people will not start exploiting others or selling their organs, then I'm sure that we are ready to go ahead with it. because there's a huge shortfall of organs, and there's a huge waiting list. Currently, we have more than 4,000 patients on dialysis. That was last year up to December. And we only did 163 transplants as per last year.
Is this because of a shortage of the organs? Is it because of a shortage of donors?
Well, it is basically multifactorial. Remember that this organ donation is not, there is a financial aspect to it, a cost aspect to it.
Mm-hmm.
Number two is that when we get the potential donors, some of them are disqualified because, remember, the diabetes also runs in the families as well. So some of them, we have to disqualify them because either they have diabetes or they have some form of kidney disease or they have some form of heart disease and they're not suitable to undergo the organ transplantation.
Mm-hmm.
So is it correct then to say that as we stand as a country, we are seeing an increase in the number of people who require organ transplantation, but they're unable to access it because of all these other factors, and therefore it's about time that we started expanding our sources of the organs?
Yes.
How far has this conversation gone in terms of with the policymakers and with the lawmakers?
So one of the ways in which we can do it is basically by introducing the deceased donor organ program.
Mm-hmm.
And for that, the ministry, together with the Kenya Renal Association and with the assistance of the legal, the lawyers, we are basically coming up with a bill, trying to see how we can basically come up with policies and frameworks to start off the deceased donor organ program as well.
There's a bit of a confusion. I see from the story that we have in the Standard today, it says organ donation and transplant is governed by the Health Act of 2017, which provides that individuals can donate their organs upon their death by expressing their wishes in the will in the presence of two competent witnesses. Is this true?
Well, you see, it has not yet been put in place as yet because, like, for example, it's not only about the legal framework as well.
Mm-hmm.
What we need is also to have the human resource and the personnel to be able to do it as well. Like, for example, if I have a will that I want to donate my organs in case if I die, number one is that we need to have all of the recipients, like, for example, in the different counties, like I'll give an example of Nairobi.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to have a central registry whereby all the patients who are on dialysis are put on the list so that they are the potential recipients. So, of course, the priority is given to the one who is first on the list and second, third, fourth, fifth. Number two is that when I die, then, for example, if I get involved in a road traffic accident and I'm declared brain dead, then we need to have resources that will basically be able to do what is called tissue typing, virtual tissue typing within 1 hour so that we can know who is going to get my kidney from the potential recipient list, which we don't have in Kenya as yet. Then we need to have a team that is going to come to wherever I am, in whichever hospital, get those organs and then take them to the hospital that is going to be doing the kidney transplant. So the transfer of the organs, the harvesting of the organ, and making the organs reach to that place. Also, we need to have these resources put in place as well.
Is it possible to have this done? I mean, just from what you're saying, it seems that there's so many processes, around all of this. Is it possible to have this done whereby, because it's a system, it is a collation of data and information, it is getting a lot of people on the same page. It's not just the practice of medicine, but it's in terms of legislation also when it comes to government and getting things done. Is it possible to chart this path, or are there too many other problems that are being dealt with before you even start to consider these?
I believe that this is very doable, and I am a proponent of deceased organ donation because, trust me, this is the one way in which we'll be able to assist our Kenyan brothers and sisters. Once when the legislation is put in place and there is somebody very responsible who is overlooking it, and then we have what are called the transplant coordinators, who are basically coordinating the whole entire process. you see, and we need to identify 2 or 3 hospitals that would be key when it comes to the doing the transplants for the deceased donor organs, then it becomes very doable. Yes, there is a lot of work initially to make sure that we have very robust frameworks and in place so that we make sure that, you see, like even, for example, if I say that I have, if I die and I want to donate my organs, I have 2 kidneys. So ideally one should go to the state hospital and one should go to a private hospital so that, there's equity. Because of the fact that then the government is supposed to also foot the entire bill as well of the transplantation. Remember that, for example, in the private facility like where I work, we do an organ transplantation fully for 1.6 million Kenyan shillings. In Kenyatta National Hospital, it can cost between 800 to 1 million shillings.
Yeah.
Now, remember that we have patients who require the kidneys, yes. But out of the blue, if you're going to tell them that, there's an organ available now, come and deposit 1.6 million or come and deposit 1 million shillings. I mean, nobody walks around with that kind of a money.
Yeah.
You get me? So, and there is a time limit to which an organ can stay viable. It is within 24 hours after a death is when the organ is supposed to be transplanted. So this is where now the government and the National Hospital Insurance Fund needs to come in, and we need to see how they're going to fund this transplant process and deceased donor organ transplantation.
From what you understand, is there an appreciation or a buy-in from them at this point? Is it a conversation that has been had, or are we at the place now we're beginning to invite agitation over this?
Yeah, so as a Kenya Renal Association, we have been in talks with the National Hospital Insurance Fund. I mean, the NHIF does tend to pay, especially for we only do the related living program right now. So they tend to pay between 500 to 600,000 shillings. So that offsets the cost. So the family now has to pay the rest of the money. But unfortunately, the NHIF does not pay for the drugs after that. Remember that once when you are transplanted, you need to be on medications to suppress your immunity so that your body does not reject the organ, and this is for the rest of your life. So it costs around 40 to 50,000 shillings a month initially for the first 1 year, and then it goes down to around 30,000 per month for the second year, and then around 25,000 for the rest of your life. This is just the drugs.
Yeah, that's steep.
It's a very steep one. I think the conversation here needs to happen from various fronts.
Exactly.
First of all, convincing the policymakers, because also you see, policymakers are just like us. They are also Kenyans.
They are us.
They have the same mindset as the rest of the population when it comes to issues of donating organs, and then they also get to that point as well where they have difficulty convincing one another in their own boardrooms about some of these changes that we're talking about.
Exactly.
So, it sounds like a conversation that needs to start somewhere, but it needs a driver, and this is where the Renal Association comes in, and the Kenya Medical Association and the other professionals to push this agenda and this conversation forward. We cannot start talking about organ donation if the people do not see organ donation as something that they should even be broaching as a conversation.
If I may say something, I think that the initiative by the president for rolling out the dialysis program was a brilliant one. Trust me, it has saved so many lives, because before that, remember that every session of dialysis was costing around 9,500 shillings. And not very many people could afford it. And you could see it, especially in the government facilities, people just, coming in, it's all about dialysis. They can't even afford the dialysis catheter. So it was an excellent and a brilliant initiative by His Excellency. Now, the National Hospital Insurance Fund is actually funding 2 sessions a week of dialysis, which is costing 18,000 shillings a week.
Yeah.
So if you multiply that by 4, in a month it comes to 76,000 shillings. Now, remember that this patient loses 2 days of work every week, okay?
Yeah.
Now, when somebody is transplanted, there is a direct cost saving. Remember, I told you that the first year's cost every month is between 40 and 50,000. Now, if you compare 40 and 50,000 for the drugs vis-a-vis 76,000 for the dialysis every month that the NHIF forks out, it is saving a lot of money it makes economical sense for the NHIF also to pay for the drugs, so that many people can now say that yes, they want to get transplanted. Because a lot of times when I talk to my patients and tell them that look, this is the reality, that after this you'll be on your own and you have to foot this bill. Many of them say I would rather stay back on dialysis. I mean, I can't afford the 40,000 a month.
Yeah.
Not very many Kenyans can afford that. So my plea to the NHIF is that let's look at it in a more objective way. I mean, there's significant cost savings. So within 3 years, you basically recoup back all the money that you have spent on dialysis. Number two is that the patient has gone back to working full time. He's energetic. He can do work. He's contributing to they're more productive. They're contributing taxes. They're contributing to the GDP. So there's an indirect cost saving as well that you're getting as well. Yes.
Indeed, that's a big conversation. Dr. Hussein Baga, thank you very much for speaking to us. Dr. Hussein is a nephrologist, head of the renal and transplant unit at the MP Shah Hospital. We have been talking about organ donation, and like now he's just given us practical experience of what they go through as doctors at the renal unit. I mean, this is not a simple conversation that should just be left to be had in the boardrooms. It's a conversation that affects livelihoods.
And we must have it again.
We must have this conversation with now even all of us. I mean, we must basically even, starting from the simple question was, would you donate your organ?
The question is when I'm alive or when I'm dead?
Both?
Either. Would you?
I would, yes.
Good. Of course you would. I'm not going to ask you.
Why?
I am not going to ask you.
Why?
I'll ask you in the next hour. Dr. Baga, would you donate your organs?
Yes, I would.
All right.
Because I've actually seen how it helps out. Mark my words, I have had patients who are so grateful that they have gotten an organ from their relative and they're back to work. They're feeling so healthy. They're not coming to the hospital twice a week. And it makes a big change in their life as well.
Yeah.
Actually, some of the countries like Spain, they have an opt-out policy. So unless if you say you do not want to donate,
it is
you are
assumed
considered
that
to be an organ donor.
And that's actually a good move to take. I mean, you're considered an organ donor as long as you're a citizen of this country.
Yes.
And then it's an opt-out where you go and say, no, for one reason or the other, I do not want to do this.
It's just to say, maybe a little bit more simplistic, but it's the same thing like in the United States. You will be on jury duty unless there's something wrong with you.
Yep.
And then you opt out of that.
When you're called upon, you have an obligation to appear.
To your country.
Indeed. I think we should even have this conversation now with the audience in the next hour.
This is why we must have this conversation, because it then limits that particular room that is provided for all these nefarious characters who want these underhanded deals.
Yeah.
Because if it is available...
If it's available, then what's the problem?
That's it.
What is the problem?
And you also help demystify.
But, so for us to make that work, then we also have to demystify it to the people.
Yes.
It's not just about donating your organ to your family member. It's donating your organ.
So anybody
Full
who
stop.
may need it.
Yes.
Just donating it.
Donating your organ. Full stop. Asante sana, Dr. Baga, for joining us this morning, and wish you a great day.
Thank you very much for allowing me to come in.
Thank you so much, Dr. Terry.
Not an easy conversation, but no, an easy conversation for some people. Not an easy
it's an
conversation.
Extremely informative conversation.
For sure.
Not an easy conversation for very many people.
But you must start somewhere. Honestly, you must start somewhere.
There's a lot of demystification that needs to take place. I mean, can you imagine now to swap in all of the cultural things that somebody would say, I don't know if the person that I'm getting this organ from, if there was madness in their family, or if they were witches, or, if they were leaning towards the side of craziness.
It's not organ transplant, it's organ
transfer.
transfer.
It's spiritual transfer of things. Can you imagine?
So you are discussing organ transplant, and someone else is discussing all manner of other transfers.
Can you imagine the conversations that you must have with people? That's why he's behaving like that.
Ile roho mbaya.
Huyu mtu alikuwa na roho mbaya sana. Tangu yako roho. Hai, amebadilika sana. Coming to the top of the hour, let's continue this conversation. CT, today's proverb.
He who holds another in the mud must stay in the mud to keep him down.
Okay. So let's have a conversation, right?
Yes, let's have a conversation.
0719-012-600. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Spice FM, KE, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, as well as www.spicefm.co.ke. We shall continue this conversation. Let's first take a look at what's happening on the roads. Good morning. It's now 9 o'clock.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Right, so I'm counting already 8 accidents around Nairobi today, and counting is what we see. So there's traffic all over the place, right? Magadi Road, Mombasa Road, Thika Road. Everybody else want to join in here. Udhiru, Kikuyu, Limuru Road. Outside of the city, Limuru Tigoni Road. Wow, it's a mess today, guys. Hopefully it'll open up in a little bit. We're getting out of traffic hour in just a minute. The Juja Farm Road is being tarmacked as we speak, so that's a good thing. It might affect traffic in one way or the other. There's a mess on Magadi Road right now. Now, this mess is going to take you to Langata Road, and it'll even go further down then towards the Uhuru Highway as you join the roundabout at Nyayo Stadium. So there's another accident on Thigiri Road this morning. I think now we're talking about the accidents that we can see, and that's affecting traffic everywhere.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Nduh Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the
so
only way to
real.
start your day.
So, we're being very scientific
And academic.
and legal. Let's not get real about this.
Just start with something as simple as blood donation. And the attachment, the other attachments people have to blood, other than that, it's blood. The spiritual aspects of it, the mythological aspects of it, the supernatural aspects of it. All these things are realities that people deal with. Now, this is something that is replenished, as I had earlier mentioned.
Blood.
Yes, you donate it, it will be replenished. Your body replenishes it. As opposed to what we may call organ donation, where when it's donated, it's donated.
It's cut off, it's gone.
It's gone. All right? And then there's tissue donation. All these things, when you give the perspective of, say, something mechanical, you are essentially telling people that your body can act as a spare part.
Yeah.
Doesn't go down well.
And not a spare part for you.
No.
Spare part for someone else.
The else thing is okay if you're talking about to some degree of a relative that they know.
Yeah.
You take it to now someone whom you don't know, whose background you don't know, and let's bring it even closer to home. You are receiving an organ from someone whose background you don't know, his nationality you don't know.
Tribe you don't
Thank you very much. You've got the heart of the matter. I was building up to get there.
Let me just, about the one that I know. I said in Nigeria, all within the boundaries, go and tell your father or your mother that you want to marry said man. You're from the north, you're from the south. They say, okay, no problem. I'm just giving you as an example so that you can understand how much deeper now it would be for organ transplant. Even blood is even far before you even get to organ donation. Marry. The one that you want to marry. You come and you tell your folks this is what you want. They say, okay, no problem, go. I've heard you. They send somebody to go to that place where you said you want to marry this person from and find out if there's history of madness in the family, if there's history of banditry and thievery in the family, if there's history of
Night running.
maybe night running, their parents and mothers and aunties were witches, they want to find out. Because should such a reality be found to be, there's no way you will be joined with this individual. That's marriage. There's no swapping of anything yet. That is just marriage. They will not allow it. How much more? Now, can you imagine shifting?
Going to the
That's-
south and telling them you're receiving a heart from the north.
No. Going to somebody else now and saying that you're receiving a heart from somebody else or a liver from somebody you don't know. To even marry somebody is an issue whereby you want to find out and make sure that everything is clean. How much more now you're opening this person and removing an organ?
Can I just ask a question? What if these people of this community are of good repute?
And now that's the one we want.
So even their organs can be of good repute.
No.
It rises
that
in
doesn't
value.
even come into the conversation.
It rises in value. These people are really of good repute. They're entrepreneurial, whatever. You get their kidney, you get their lung.
Given that we are Africans and Kenyans, there'll be a naysayer who says, that may be so, but
But-
there's a grandmother you didn't know about. Hey.
That particular person.
Then the flood waters will come in with that grandmother. And all manner of things. And it may not necessarily be false. If it is a perspective that is widely held in that community, it comprises their truth. And anything else you say is yours. But as far as they're concerned, this is the truth. In many African communities, there are places, there are communities, there are families that people did not marry from. It was known. And when you asked, you're given the explanation.
Okay.
Not when you're young, when you're a little older. Or children you're told not to play with. These ones have a mother who has an evil eye.
Yeah.
If they look at you, all manner of terrible things will happen to you in the present and also into the future.
And that's the only reason why you're told do not play with.
Yes.
Some of them is not even the mother. They have an auntie. And if you happen to be playing there and the auntie visits,
Many African communities had the concept of what you call a go-between. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Somebody who more or less understood both families and could tell you ahead of time, say, no, this one actually won't work. This one... It was a combo, an all-in-one task force. The person, they know everything, and they'll give you information.
Yeah, they're the ones they actually go and seek
essentially,
counsel from.
the modern temporary, they'll give you the dirt and say, sort of voice, this one actually. I don't know, where should we begin? That snake that we bass. The moment snake enters an African conversation, nothing good is going to come out of
becomes
that.
something else.
Nothing good is going to come out of that conversation.
So it's World Organ Donation Day today and every 13th of August every year, all right? Now, we don't hear often about this. We know about World AIDS Day, we know about all the other World Days, but this kind of day is not one day that we hear often about.
No.
Because it's not a conversation that we have on a daily basis. No. However, we know that increasingly, very many people are going through procedures where they require organ donation. They may be unable to go through with it because of other factors, including cost. But families have had to sit down and have a conversation about donating an organ to their loved one. The law in the country allows you to do this, and that's what the doctor was telling us earlier. Related living donor transportation, that is what is allowed. A relative giving an organ to a relative. Both are alive. That is allowed. Dead, it's another whole ball game. Now, if it is not somebody who's related to you, the law does not allow this because of other factors, including now looking at the bad side of things. A country like Spain, where the doctor told us, it's assumed automatically
You're a donor.
that you are a donor as long as you're a citizen of this country. You are an organ donor. Unless you opt out. Now, let's bring that and hypothetically put it in Kenya and say, suppose the country laws allowed us to donate our organs to anybody. Would you then willingly donate your organs? We're talking about heart, kidney, liver, anything. Any organ. Would you willingly donate your organ, dead or alive? 0719-012-600. And Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and Instagram as well. And some of these things that we are looking at is culture, socio-cultural hurdles to this?
I'm looking at the legislation of the country because it's, it doesn't really go in depth in terms of then what you are unable to do.
Yep.
Apart from that, you can get donations from your family members. And I can see the reason why the legislation has not picked this up. Because can you imagine the conversations that would start to come about? The whole agitation, because, some people do hold this sacred. My loved one has gone, just in the case of death, my loved one has gone. How do you then imagine taking this individual apart again and then giving off parts of their body to somebody else? Because that's it. It's not about saving the life of somebody else. It's that you're taking what is remaining of my loved one apart and then now distributing it to whomever is a taker. So there's a sacred aspect of it that comes into play. And also the social aspect of, okay, so then, my loved one is here, is spread all over the place. I don't even know where. So you can imagine then how much more is needed then in terms of depth to then be able to make it law. Because it wouldn't just be somebody standing up and making a decision and saying, all right, we're entrenching it in the law today that everybody then can be a donor. There's so many other things that need to be taken into consideration by the time you do that. And culture is a huge aspect.
It's a big thing.
Yes.
Enid Gitonga calling in from Njeri. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Now, I'm doing good, huh? And this is a very insightful conversation, actually. But let me tell you something, huh?
Yep.
There's something that is called idiocy, okay?
Yep.
I'm sorry for using that word, but let's look at it this way, huh?
It's actually not an insult. It's actually a description, usually.
Exactly. Let's look at it this way, huh? You're dead. You're not using any organ in your body. Where's the hell? Can't you donate it? Where the hell is the government telling you not to donate it after you're dead? Yet you're not using it. Yet somebody can have another life, can have 10 years of his or her own life, productive life actually, with that organ of yours.
So you would willingly donate your organs?
Of course.
And this is after you die. How about when you're alive?
After I die, yes. But if I'm alive and there's somebody who needs an organ and I, like, for example, a kidney, right? I can willingly do it.
Okay.
Because, let's look at it this way, huh? You're saving a life, right?
Yep.
Don't look at it at the gaining factor, because people, as you were saying, people look at it like, what am I gaining, or like there's some superstition involved. That is the thing. Let's just use facts. Let's just use some real reasoning. It's an organ. You're using it, but when you die, you're not going to use it. Okay, you have 2 kidneys. Somebody else can have a better life.
We hear you.
Why can't you, just
We
connect?
hear you. Thank you, Ed. Thank you very much. Have a good day in Njeri. Let's go to Moshada. Daniel in Moshada, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
Good morning
Hi,
to you.
Nduh.
Hi.
Muga.
Hi, how are you today?
Fine, thank you. Now, I wanted to contribute on this. I was listening to the conversation from Daktari, and I was looking at actually one of the aspects. Of course, I would completely donate my organ, but even only my condition would be on opt out from when a death occurs. It should be optional to anyone who wants to donate their organ while they're still alive. That one should be optional. At least the opt-out should be upon death. And I was looking at, I don't know if they've done statistics on the number of people on dialysis who can actually move out of them. Because I was looking at the costs that he was talking about. 76,000 a month. And yet when you're doing a transplant from people who can freely donate organs, and you're making a saving on around 30,000 shillings, you actually unlock funds which can be transferable to other units of health. I mean, NHS can clearly, easily cover that. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, actually, the doc shared some of those statistics. Said over 400 people who are on daily dialysis. Requiring dialysis different times during the year or the week, and then many of these are not able to move on to transplantation because of various factors, key among them being finances.
Yeah. And okay, the finance, it's a one-off. The one-off is the most difficult one, where we're talking about the state would require around 800,000.
Actually, the one-off is not even the most difficult one. The one-off would be in a public hospital
It's
about
a continuous
1.2.
care and treatment.
It's a continuous where you have.
Yeah, I'm looking at an option where
Okay.
NHIF is covering it.
Okay. Yes. Indeed.
Yeah. When NHIF is covering it, then the other one, if dialysis is being covered, you imagine all the 400 are converted to transplant. That's almost 400 million for them to be transplanted. Then now you save 30,000 for the next, not even 30,000.
So, but Daniel, we moved on from the academic conversation now to the very, very, very practical and socio-cultural. You, Daniel, would you donate your organs? Would you go ahead today and sign up to donate your organs to anybody? It doesn't matter whether they come from Mushada or from Peketoni.
So long as I am a match, why not?
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the question. Now, thank you
I
very
don't
much.
see any difficulty there.
Thank you very much, Daniel.
Okay. Have a good day.
0719-012-600. That's the question we were asking. Would you willingly donate your organs to anybody?
I would actually then beg to ask the question, what would prevent you from offering yourself as a donor or accepting to donate? Because the truth of the matter is, conversationally speaking, I will just say yes. I'm under no obligation to actually donate. No. I can say yes. But it's like asking people, will you take an HIV test? The answer will be yes. When it comes to taking that test.
So change ask it a different way. What would prevent you
from actually
from doing the donation?
From actually donating.
Why don't we ask Dennis that question that directly? Dennis in Ahero, good morning.
Morning.
How are you?
Quite fine.
So answer the question as it has now been phrased, all right? What would prevent you from donating your organs?
Okay, I myself as an individual, I would like to say that I can be willingly ready to donate my organ if somebody is in need. And I'm just trying to ask myself why the legislatures have not taken that into consideration. Because, maybe somebody can be having a problem with the organ, like, kidney, we are having 2 kidneys, kidney stones.
Yeah.
And by the science, by going with what the science tells us is that we can actually live a life with just one. So, maybe somebody is having all of his ruptured. I think it's just okay if they can be given another one. But this one can only happen if the government of Kenya takes that as something which is very important through our parliament.
Dennis, let me ask the question again. Is there anything that would prevent you from actually donating your organs?
No. There is nothing that can prevent me. If for example, I have been taken to test to the extent that I'm being told that I can survive with one, then what's the problem?
So it doesn't matter?
No, it doesn't matter.
Would you be interested to know who was the recipient?
I tend to believe that whenever doctors would like to do the transfer, then the first thing they do is to actually know whether the organ is going to work on the other person. Yeah, they normally establish that first.
They do.
Yeah. Now, like for example, it's just like the blood donations that we normally do each and every time, like myself, I'm a donor. Yeah, I've donated blood actually 4 times.
And it doesn't really matter who.
So it doesn't matter who's getting your blood. So in this case, it wouldn't matter who was getting one of your 2 kidneys.
Yeah, the compatibility is something that is established by the doctor.
Okay,
Yeah, exactly.
Would you willingly receive
a
kidney or from someone you do not know?
If it is something that can work on me, then what's the problem?
Okay. Thank you very much, Dennis. Have a good day in Ahero.
Thank you.
19 minutes after 9 o'clock. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. The conversation today being World Organ Donation Day is around the myths and misconceptions and especially the social cultural issues that would prevent us from being organ donors, willing organ donors. And the question is, what would prevent you from donating an organ to somebody, whether you know them or you don't? Good morning, 20 minutes after 9. Let's take a look at the weather.
You are tuned in to Nairobi's #1 soul station, Spice FM.
All right, mostly cloudy. The sun is trying to peek out through those clouds in Nairobi. We will see highs of 24 today and lows of 13. A chance of rain also later on in the day. It's mostly cloudy in Njeri. It'll turn into thunderstorms later with highs of 22 and lows of 14. In Nakuru, it's partly cloudy at 16, highs of 22 and lows of 14 as well. Let's take a look into Eldoret, where it'll be a thunderstormy afternoon with highs of 20 and lows of 12. Kisumu also will have wet conditions this afternoon with highs of 29 and lows of 17. Kakamega will experience showers in the forecast, 24 the high and lows of 15. Malindi is mostly sunny at 26. Sunny conditions will prevail throughout the day, highs of 28 and lows of 23. It's partly cloudy in Mombasa, 26 degrees, highs of 28 and lows of 22. While in Kampala, it's likely to have wet conditions with highs of 25 and lows of 18. Dar es Salaam is mostly sunny at 24. She'll go to a high of 29 and come down to lows of 20. It's 8 degrees and mostly sunny in Johannesburg in South Africa. Highs of 19 and lows of 3 with sunny conditions all through. It's partly cloudy in Lagos at 23. Highs of 29 and lows of 22 with showers expected for the afternoon. Let's look into Paris, where the rains continue. It's mostly cloudy at 21. Remember, there's a high temperature warning for orange. Highs of 29 and lows of 20. Taking a look then into London, where the summer months continue. 22 degrees currently and partly cloudy. Highs of 29. The rains, however, will dampen the afternoon. We'll wrap things up in New York for today, where it's peaking into Thursday morning. Partly cloudy conditions at 26. Highs of 29 and lows of 23 with a forecast of rain through the day.
And everything nice, everything nice.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings.
22 minutes after 9. This is a Situation Room. The conversation continues. Let's talk to Zachary in Nakuru. Good morning, Zachary.
Oh, good morning, guys.
How are you?
Morning, Zachary.
I hope everyone, including Mwalimu Andrew, our celebrated Mwalimu Andrew, is okay. And
Yes,
it's good to have such wise men. They are called institutional memory holders, yeah?
Very good.
And that is why he is so much resourceful in that program. Now, not only would I be willing to donate my organs once I'm dead, I would be willing to give my body as a cadaver. You see, too, so that it can be used to study in the universities, yeah?
Okay.
Okay.
And I kind of think that it's the government that controls what, like now if I die, yeah, how my body is going to be treated has been catered for in law. That my people are not allowed to, like keep me in the house for 2 years, yeah. So it should apply the same law should apply that once a dead body is there, it belongs to the government.
Okay.
That's my kind of thinking, yeah. And the body should undergo so many tests to determine is this body worthy of being harvested, and we harvest organs from this body so that it can help others, the living people, yeah.
Okay. Now let's not be hypothetical. As you've said, you would be more than willing to donate your body, organs, and even your body, the entire body, once you die.
Yeah.
It is allowed in law.
It is allowed, but you kind of see that.
Are you aware?
Now I am aware if my brother dies and I go to the hospital where I'm taking the body for burial, if I found that it has been mutilated and some organs are missing, like now the cornea, the what, I am allowed to. The same law give me a way whereby I can go and complain. Yeah?
Of course you can. Now, the law does not talk about you donating your body without having given consent when you are alive. So I am talking to you, Zachary, today because you're saying that you'll be willing. Are you willing to go and write a will today saying that once I am dead, I will willingly donate my organs?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
But are you aware that can also be challenged in court?
By who?
Your wife, of course.
By Waizira, or it's only Waizira they can out to challenge, but not anybody else.
Why would Waizira challenge that?
That's what I want. I'd like Zachary to tell us. Why would Waizira challenge it and not her mother?
Well, because of the connection that we have, yeah. Her being my daughter, probably she would want to have me the whole, she would want to have this whole body, yeah. But now let me ask you a question. There is somebody there who asked, if I'm dead, yeah, do I need my eyes? Do I even need my kidneys or even my heart?
You don't know.
Zachary, let me ask you a completely different question, okay?
Ask me, Maureen.
There are people in your community who may not share this view. What category of individuals do you think these would be?
Now, maybe they could be witches or whatever, because actually, the question that you are coming to is this, yeah? You have gone, you are dead, okay? Do you need your eyes where you are going? Do you need your heart? No. So why don't you actually, if you value life, why don't you let those organs be used by those people who are living?
Right.
Yeah.
You put your case strongly.
That's my take, and it would be my belief. And even my body, I would just say, okay, let us go to Kenyatta University.
I am challenging you today, Zachary. Hii mambo yote umesema ni sawa. The law allows you to do this. So don't be very hypothetical. You are alive. You are Zachary. You have already said that you're willing.
You're allowed.
Challenging you. Call us in a couple of weeks' time and tell us, you know what, guys? I've written my will. And my will says that when I die, my body organs are available for donation. You call you call us in a couple of weeks' time and tell us it's done.
Then we'll know you're serious.
Then we'll know you're serious.
Otherwise,
you'll just be like Serikali. Asante sana.
Okay.
0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. It's not an easy conversation. It's very easy to say, well, of course I would. Just like you said, City. Of course I would do it.
Why wouldn't I? Yes, as I said, so long as we're having this conversation on radio, everything is possible.
Yes, no, it's very possible. When push comes to shove, where the rubber meets the road, it's a totally different thing. And I'm at the point where I do believe quite a number of people, it would not be a very settling thing. It's not about saving the part about saving somebody's life or the medical aspect of it doesn't come into play here. It really has a little bit more, it touches with the subjective that people would say, okay, well, I don't know about that, if I would be able to do that. Or even people then who have whatever kind of ownership, in quotes, over this other individual. When it comes to burying your dead, for example, there's so many people now who have a say in terms of how it's going to be done. Can you imagine what it would be like when now they're saying, the liver goes here, the heart goes here?
In fact, you give a perfect example with reference to marriage. If you ask any Kenyan on radio, they will tell you they are Kenyans. And they believe in being Kenyans, and the activities are Kenyans, their thought process are Kenyans. Scratch a little bit. They're as tribal as the next person whom they're castigating. So there is who we are, there's what we are, and there's what we'd like the world to believe we are. And when it comes to something like organ donation, something which is a part of your body, a body which doesn't have spares, a body that has a one-off, you die,
that's it.
And then if you believe in life after death, then there's life after death. But it won't be in this form. It comes with very many other permeations.
Stephen in Eldoret, good morning.
Yes, good morning. How are you?
Salama kabisa.
Yeah. So I just wanted to contribute on the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And on my side, I don't think if I will be so much willing to contribute or meaning to give away any part of my organ.
Why?
Yeah, and the reason I think it is based on my Christian, on my religion belief.
Okay.
You know, we've been taught my body is my body. I was given by God, you know, and one day I will be accountable for it. So
Stephen, you're a Christian.
Yes, I'm a Christian.
If you don't mind me asking, what denomination of Christianity?
Yeah, I'm a Mormon. You've heard about the Mormons?
Yeah.
Yes, we have.
Yeah. So to me, okay, no, I don't know what the Mormons say about someone donating their organ or anything, but that is my just personal belief that I cannot give it out just like that. Yeah.
What do the Mormons believe in when it comes to donating blood?
No, I don't think they have a problem with that. You can donate blood. I think I've done it before several times when we are doing those charity work in various hospitals, especially in Eldoret. We have a referral hospital.
Yeah.
Teaching and referral hospital. I've done that several times. I don't think there's an issue with that.
All right. So your main issue here is because of your religion, then you don't feel comfortable donating blood. Would you be comfortable receiving?
Okay, that's a difficult question to say because I don't know if how necessary it will be, because from what that doctor was talking about, maybe you might receive the organ, but if you look at the expense that follow after doing that, it is extremely
too expensive to maintain this new body part.
Yeah, so maybe I might not be so sure of how much I will be able to take care of the expenses for the life.
We get you.
For the rest of the life that I will be living. So to me, it is not necessary. I don't think I would go for it.
We get you, Stephen. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Enoch in Kiambu, good morning.
Good morning, Eric. How are you?
It's been a while, Enoch. How are you?
I'm very well. Nduh,
yes.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
And this Mwalimu. Muga.
Umejaribu sana, thank you. The Mwalimu is called Muga, CT Muga. Saa zingine jina inapotea ndugu, so it's understandable. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well.
Lovely.
Yes. This issue of donating, I think it's something we should be encouraged within our society. And it is us, in fact, even in donating of our blood. In fact, there's a time I used to donate blood yearly. And in my small notebook where I write the things which, when I go, I've written somewhere, when I die, my body should be donated to University of Nairobi, Chiromba, to do their own things with it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think
you've written somewhere in a notebook.
Sorry?
You've written somewhere on a notebook.
Yes, a part of my will.
Ah,
okay.
Which I think that I should, in fact, I should give that over to the university.
Notarize it with a lawyer
see
as
whether
well.
they will accept it. Yeah, so I think. Because if you are dead, a dead body is useless. Actually, it has no meaning. Even if you bury it, there is not really much you get out of it. But if it can help even advance science, I think we should go for that.
Thank you very much,
Thank you,
Enoch.
Yes.
26 minutes to 10 o'clock. Let's take another break. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads. Nduh started saying that roads are looking bad as early as 5:30. My goodness.
It's terrible, man.
Should have improved by now, hopefully.
Should have been the operative word here.
Yeah. Let's hear what's happening on the roads. Good morning. This is a situation. Kenya's biggest conversation.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM.
All right, between the SGR and Mombasa Road and then towards the airport junction and then towards Cabanas and a little bit further down, it's still bumper to bumper. After General Motors, however, on Mombasa Road, it looks not so bad. You get to Bellevue and then there's that construction that's happening right around Bellevue that is, holding traffic up a little bit. But then after that, you should be fine to Uhuru Highway. And then into the CBD, it's a little bit clogged, but you should be fine. Officially out of traffic hour. Still a bit of an issue on Thika Road and Gong Road. There is a problem there. It's bumper to bumper on Gong Road. It's bumper to bumper on Langata Road, coming off of Magadi Road because of that incident that has taken place there. Hopefully all these things will dissipate in a short while and then we shouldn't have too much traffic. And Mombasa Road should behave. We are willing you to behave today. Spice of MKE on Twitter, just in case you see anything we should know about, let us know.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
So let's
94.4 Spice FM.
With earlier this morning, and this is the operations of the Nairobi City County. And who's running this city county? Is it the NMS or is it the county government of Mike Mbuvi Sonko?
Combined effort.
Now.
Because the Nairobi Metropolitan Services has very little to do with what, should we say, the Assembly does. The Governor's Office does. And not every department within the county was transferred to the Nairobi Metropolitan Services.
Only 4 functions were transferred.
Yes.
On paper.
Yes.
And then we have seen the governor of Nairobi City County, going all around and saying, you know what, this man, Buddy, surely, he's all over me, man. And Buddy himself just saying...
Does he give details of what he means by that statement?
In some instances, yeah, in some instances, no. Yesterday, they were together. Buddy, his buddy Sonko, and their boss, the president, at KICC at a function. And the president basically just wanted to read the Riots Act. He said, Buddy has no interest in being a governor, a speaker, or even an MCA. He works for me. And when he's done with the assignment in Nairobi, he'll go back to the military. So I don't want to hear any politics around that. Umesikia bwana? And Sonko said, yes, nimesikia. There's a lot of propaganda going around that I don't want NMS. Please ignore them, Mr. President. I'm the one who came to you and asked for help. And it's at this point that Sonko and Buddy agreed to end their feud and work together. The two will preside over the launch of the Michuki Park on Friday. The two said that they will jointly preside over the launch of the Michuki Park on Friday. We do not know whether they'll do it. I apologize for all the ill I have spoken about my brother Buddy. That's what Sonko said.
Tomorrow.
Friday, senior.
Tomorrow. The day we
First taste of the pudding.
Yes, tomorrow is also the day we are set to have an increase in fuel prices. But that's a different Just, so that we understand that Friday is going to be a Friday of many things. But the truth of the matter is this. If we were to be judicial towards the governor of Nairobi, there is no governor in this country who has had to share their powers with anybody, any other body, in the way that he has. Essentially, if you look at the ministries or the departments that were taken away from him, it's the heart of the county. The moment someone takes revenue, okay, I'm not even going beyond that one.
Don't even go to health.
No, I'm not even going to go there. What on earth are you supposed to do thereafter? That's the heartbeat. That's the heart.
You've taken away legs, so they can't move.
They've taken away the entire body, actually. The rest is just your hair.
But why are we subjecting ourselves as citizens to all these shenanigans anyway?
It's entertainment.
So at one point,
it's entertainment.
we see the governor and the CS in charge of devolution signing an agreement in State House. A couple of weeks later, the governor himself says, you know what? When I went there, they gave me alcohol. So I was juiced up by the time I was signing this thing.
So he's
So-
trying
no, wait,
to
so-
say that.
So he's basically insinuating that it was under duress.
Duress. He,
The
under
consumption
normal
of alcohol is normally
Directly proportional to the loss of...
making bad decision. So according to him, this was a bad decision. He would not have ordinarily made this decision
Had he
to
been
hand
sober.
over these services had he been of sober mind.
You know,
all right?
And the person to blame for his lack of sobriety is...
The president.
Walinipatia pombe.
Look, one of the things that our politicians do for us unfailingly is they provide us with entertainment. I mean, I was saying it not in humor, I meant it. Do you know how much we lap up? We ask this question, you ask the question, shenanigans. Why do we put up with it? The entertainment factor is beyond question. Do you know what so said today?
Plus, it puts a pin in the pressure of the
It does.
undeniable reality that there's certain things that are supposed to be done which are not done. So when you see this humor and this drama, you're likely to sit there and say, okay, well, let's just take a load off of all this other drama that shouldn't be and watch this one. So we laugh a little bit. It is, after all, the best medicine.
I'm drowning, and it's just because, this boat has capsized.
Let me laugh. Just look at that. Look at
Yes.
that. Meanwhile,
Yes.
I'm going down.
Yeah. Look at that boat.
And then there's a discussion. Okay, so what do you think Sonko is going to do? What do you- It's something that we regale ourselves with, we occupy ourselves with, and it's not just Nairobi. You go to any part of this country, what probably dominates a lot of the conversations, what their politicians do, whether it's at the county level, whether it's at the national level, whether it's a discussion, it's something. Our mindset, because of our politicization and our leaning towards politics, politics plays that important role in our lives.
Entertainment.
And
Yes,
like
it is.
clockwork, the gentleman actually did go and take it the legal route and say, you know what, this actually I'm not going to do. I will not hand over this, because he then was able to hold on to the clutches and to the purse and say, okay, in this agreement, essentially, I should then
handover
release
was not
money.
procedural.
It was not procedural, and so because of that, we are not able to give you the money that you require to run the metropolitan area. Like clockwork, that actually happened. Again, providing for this humor that you're talking about, to be able to see and say, really, what is going on here? Meanwhile, the taps of Nairobians continue to be dry. Garbage is filling the streets. Nairobi look like an absolute mess in the middle of the city. Now
Now,
what
on top of that, this gentleman is earning $1 million shillings plus
for doing?
for making noise.
There you
Now,
go.
if you want to understand where the humor extends to, he doesn't have enough money for groceries.
Of course. He's not able to feed his
As
family.
it is reported in the papers.
Because the Asset Recovery Authority has gone to court and frozen his accounts.
His $500 million worth of accounts.
Yes, that was $500 million. Does it mean that is also the salary account?
I don't know.
So,
We don't know. Maybe he's even asked the county government to just give him petty cash.
the point I'm trying to make is that all these things make the conversation of very many Kenyans. Who did what? How did they do this? Take it to the national level. They even go as far as even being clairvoyant. What do you think Uhuru is thinking about this matter in the Senate? No. But what do you think Raila is thinking about this? What do you think Ruto? We occupy our minds with what we think our politicians are thinking, doing, purposing, the whole works. So, when you read about this, and it was preceded by the Speaker of the County Assembly
Resigning to the
resigning
president.
to the person she knows appointed her. Surely, is this not a very high level of entertainment? Think for a single second.
It is. It is a high level of entertainment.
Yes.
If you just look at it from that
Yes,
pure
and
angle
if it wasn't that the lives of the citizenry of this country, or this county rather, actually depends on the sound decisions that are made by these individuals, it would really be continuous entertainment. But at that level, it stops right then. You realize we're in trouble.
We're in serious trouble.
Yes, that's not funny. It doesn't matter how you look at it, it's not funny. If you consider the discussion we're having with Dr. Oluga, why is it that things that should have been done, God knows when, why are they being done now with regards to the health services? do
24
yes.
new health facilities.
Don't we know what the population
in
of this
months.
county is? Don't we know what the manner in which it increases? And they're planners. Of course they are. There's an entire department in the county that deals with it.
And if you want to use the same example, South B and South C residents for the first time in years, 365 times, opened their taps and water came out of their taps.
They still had taps.
There you go.
Those who had taps.
Those who still had taps. Water. Turn the tap, water came out of it. So then you ask yourself, Nairobi metropolitan area can receive 24, the plan is in place to receive 24 new medical facilities. There is water running in some taps. So the question is, these things actually could have been done. Garbage is being picked up in the streets.
Not could. They should.
They should
They're
be
not
done.
good.
So
Should
then you
have
ask
been
yourself
done.
the question, why has it never happened? And why do we continue to accept that it doesn't happen?
Why is it that something that is your due, your right, something you've paid for, it doesn't come to you and you accept, and you paid for it. You may not think so, but you do.
But then you still pay some more for it to be
You
able to
pay
get
for
that
it.
which you
If you
should.
live in this place, this city, this county, you pay for it. You may not think so, you do.
And now living with that horror day in, day out, then you're fed with this drama that we see playing out here and there. Whether Governor Mike Mbuvi Sonko insulted Mr. Badi and then hours later retracted on those statements and said, actually, he's my friend, my big brother. He's able to help me. Remember, President, I asked you for help. And now this help. So then you're asking yourself the question, so then why go into this circus zoo nature performance a couple of weeks ago in stopping the process, in not releasing the money, whereby you said before that you needed help? What are you feeding Kenyans? What are you actually feeding Kenyans at this point? The back and forth, is it absolutely necessary? Where we see that a little bit of action, just a pinch here and there, and things can happen. But then you want to be in the process to make it seem as if for what? Is it necessary?
You see where entertainment becomes useful. Huh? If you look at the role that Hollywood, Bollywood, Nollywood, and any other wood that you can think of, the role they play in our lives outside entertainment, they also shape the way we think and the way we look at certain things.
Intentionally so, in
Of
some
course,
cases.
deliberately
Yeah.
so. Smartly so. Inject an idea and keep playing with it. Why do you think we have series? So that you keep being fed this idea week in, week out. Then you have season 1.
Just to keep you occupied.
Keep you
distracted.
occupied.
The whole of Hollywood was created to keep the people of America occupied so that they fixed what was going on at the government. Fixed, and I don't mean fixed to make it operate well, but fixed to operate in a certain favor.
In the way that they'd
right?
like
in
to.
the way they'd like it
Capture.
to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, in the same way, do you really think our politicians are not smart enough to understand that if they regale us with this drama that they do from time to time, we will be occupied. And our minds will be moved away from the reality of the lives that we actually live.
So when you should be asking yourself or pointing to the fact that, you know what, these services, which are the right of the people by virtue of the fact that they pay for them and by virtue of the fact that they are akin to this boundary called Kenya, those are your rights. As opposed to looking at that and pushing for that, because they also realize that if people are not given what they deserve, they are bound to make noise at some point. You lap up this drama like a thirsty dog over and over and over again, as opposed to asking the questions that are necessary. And they realize this. And until and unless the people of Kenya realize that they know this, they're going to continue feeding you the drama. They'll continue giving it to you because they know, give it to them. It's going to keep them busy like a dog with a bone for a little while.
Now do you
then
understand where the role
move
of
on.
handouts comes in?
So when you get a little bit nervous and anxious, they give you something to shut you up.
And they also look for someone else to blame for your problems. Someone whom they know you would like to believe. And this drama in the Senate really plays into this. Because we've stopped discussing.
So we are being played.
We are being played. We've stopped discussing what the governors have been doing with all the billions they have been giving.
Yep.
We've stopped. No one even discussed it. We're now discussing who is gaining and who is losing.
We're not talking accountability for what has been
that
spent
discussion
so
isn't
far.
taking place.
You're looking at drama.
Yes. 1.8 trillion Kenya shillings, the same amount of money that the Treasury is hoping to raise this year for our budget, is what the counties have received from the time they started receiving money. And no one wants to have that discussion. And that's really the discussion you should have. Because these problems we keep talking about, they arise because that money isn't utilized the way it ought to have.
There's also another discussion. When you hear 1.8 trillion has been sent to the counties, how much has remained at the national government?
Yes, there's always that little detail also.
There's that. And if we say that this is only 15%, where's the other 85% of the money that we the taxpayer
Now
contribute?
that is the question you should ask. Where does it actually go to?
Yeah.
And then this money that keeps coming back, because not all the money is spent, where does that one also go to?
Yeah.
These are really very simple, valid questions. Because you can't tell us that there is money that we haven't spent that goes back to the treasury, and yet we have people in
Does
need.
it really go back to the treasury?
In theory, it does.
So on paper, it appears like money has gone back.
If you don't
But
spend
we-
it, you return it.
If we go back to like what PS Dr. Kibicho was telling us yesterday, the government does not operate like a savings account. It receives its spends. It receives its spends.
It doesn't
receives
hold
its
it for a
spends.
rainy day or anything like that.
So even if there is money that I received from CT yesterday, I'm just going to take it and spend it. On
How
something
on
else
earth
because I still
then,
have
if
to
it
spend.
spends all its money, did the central bank suddenly have some 30 billion that they could suddenly inject into this COVID fight?
Because the central bank makes profits. This is pure central bank.
I
profit.
agree, but central bank is government. In fact, I want to take it further.
This money that the central bank is
There is
donating to
money.
COVID is not surplus of budget.
I'm not contradicting the PS. I'm simply saying I know there's money that the government has and it's supposed to be spent. It's not supposed to be kept.
Bottom line.
Yes, its purpose is to be spent. But where does it stop us from having a sovereign fund for the country? Where does it stop you from having a saving? Where does it say the country cannot have a saving? Where? Where?
No, it doesn't say.
Precisely.
Reality. It's a reality that says that. When you're operating a budget deficit year in, year out, my friend,
Your mind is
how
not
can you
going-
have a
what are you
deficit and be
saving?
able to save?
What are you saving?
Save a deficit.
You're lying to
The question
yourself.
I'm asking is that you've actually got to the heart of the matter. Why must we have
a deficit?
Yep. Why? It's like saying that if I owe money, I must not have a saving. Who says?
Ukona madeni na ukona
By virtue, if you're part of a circle, you will have a debt because you've borrowed, but you will still also have a saving.
Yeah.
So they are not exclusive, neither are they contradictory.
In principle, it would work.
Although
in
your
principle.
savings are attached
Yes.
to that debt.
But the savings
plus
still
those
there.
of your guarantors.
Yes, and the interest that you earn, you still earn. So it isn't a zero-sum discussion. It isn't.
So back to you think we're being distracted.
Oh.
This whole drama and entertainment, Badi today, Sonko tomorrow, Badi tomorrow, Sonko today, and Senate today, Senate tomorrow is a distraction.
It is.
By
It
deep
is.
state.
It is.
Okay, throw them in.
You know,
again.
Eric, you said it so quickly. For a moment, I thought you said lipstick.
It's a distraction by lipstick. That is a distraction. But anyway, look, I think because you have to ask yourself without it, without the distraction, would you say that nothing else is being done in the country?
No.
No. Things are happening.
In fact-
Without this drama that you see in front of you, is nothing else
In
happening.
fact, a great deal is happening. A
Yeah.
lot is happening.
For sure.
And it's positive, and you even know it.
But the greater possibility
in the
that there's a
closet-
lot that could be happening that's not happening.
Thank you,
And
Eric.
that is
Even
why
more.
there is a
Exactly.
distraction.
There you go.
Because if you didn't have that distraction, you'd be able to look at it and wait. So you are moving one brick from here to there. Why can't you carry 4 bricks at a go?
Why must you move one?
Why are you just moving one and then you'll come and tell me, you see, I moved the bricks.
And it took me the whole day.
Yeah.
When you could have done that in 2 trips.
This is why we're now being distracted. Baba, Toto, Angalia. Toto.
Look at the shiny
Look,
thing
yeah,
here.
look,
Look at the
look,
shiny
look.
thing. Look at the shiny
Look at the
thing.
moon.
But there are other things that are going on.
What's the
right?
moon proverb? You show a child the moon.
They
they'll
see
only
your
the
finger.
Yeah.
Your story, a moon. At
Well-
the end of the day, you're not left with very many options as to how to interpret what you see. Because if there are words, and if we go by yesterday's proverb, when deeds speak, words mean, or should I say, yes, are nothing.
There's something that, look, it's unfortunate that you say we can only do so much. There is so much more that can be done. And these distractions take place for political mileage only. Only. Because there's nothing else that you can. Because you can't say, yeah, well, my hands were tied. As they say where I come from, snake when no get poison. Last, then go use tie firewood.
I like the firewood bit.
And the time tie, what?
No, there was a snake
Snake
also that
when
came
no
in
get
somewhere.
poison. Last, then go use tie firewood.
Okay.
Let's try and interpret that.
You try. Let's see.
Snake, when snake let me not get poison.
No, me I like the
lot they gonna use.
Me I like the rhythm and the poetry. The meaning is secondary here. I've been entertained. Me I'm happy. And I've heard snake, I've heard firewood.
Poison.
Then I've heard last.
Yes,
I've added to my vocabulary. Me I'm set.
If the snake doesn't poison you,
the snake that doesn't have poison, at the end they can still use it to tie firewood. I've put it in English for you.
It'll become a rope.
It has a use. There's something you can do with it. There's something you can do.
But it has to be harmless first.
Even though they're saying, because when you think of a snake, you think poison. So even the one that you see is useless. There's something you can do with it.
As an African, I have to ask, you mean there are such snakes?
Yes, no. They're poisonless snakes. But look, at the end of the day,
poisonless snakes.
Everything has a
poisonless.
use.
Everything has a use. There's something that you can do with everything. The same way you talk about taking a brick from here to there, where you could have done 5. You could have done 10. But then you choose to give people this dog and pony show as opposed to giving them the real deal for which you should as citizens of the country. Absolutely necessary, but then people are fazed by this dazzling of lights when it's actually deeper things that should be done with your resources, with your payments, with your expectations.
The real tragedy which borders on evil intent is that you take a people's hope, a people's trust, and you toy around with it for your own personal benefit. And you don't even give in return for what you've taken. Because, in all honesty, these are the same people who have guaranteed you have a salary, a position, and they throw in respect for good measure for you. Even give you a title, call you Mheshimiwa while you're at it. They even call you Kiongozi while you're at it. They call you what you want. And all they ask in return is that you simply ensure that the things that they have paid for are delivered. That's it.
Just deliver services.
That's it.
Just deliver.
That's it. That's
Just
all they ask.
Deliver.
You don't even deliver. And
Just
to make it
deliver
worse,
services.
this money of theirs, which they asked you and entrusted to you to deliver, is also not there.
Yeah. No. It's a big failure of all these people and the leadership when we see all this back and forth, the double speak. Some calls double speak on body, despite Uhuru's public censure. One time the governor says this, the other time the governor says the other, and then they say that they're going to work together, and it's just words, and we don't know whether they still...
Now, if you want to understand the fundamental difference, do you hear General Buddy speaking? Hardly.
Silence.
Hardly.
The silence.
But the deeds. Hospital this.
Yep.
Water,
the other,
here,
water this.
garbage collection.
The other this.
Pavement.
You see a picture. Do you hear him speak? No. But when you have a politician in place, my goodness, if words could build pavements,
we'd be in Cement City.
If words could deliver water services and build hospitals, hey,
a lot could be done.
We'd be donating hospitals to our neighbors.
Donating hospitals.
Because we'd have so many hospitals.
Yeah, we'd be asking, just come.
What do you want? Hospitals.
This one is,
yes. What about stadiums? We would have so many stadiums.
Even the ones that said they would have finished, they would have been completed.
They'd be known. There's
hosting world events.
Coming to the end of the show, and thank you very much for tuning into the Situation Room today. Tomorrow is Friday. We'll have more discussions and more conversations. Join us then. So, today's proverb.
He who holds another in the mud must stay in the mud to keep him down. Broad meaning, but since we're discussing politics, when you go around mudslinging and uttering statements that you think are politically sound for that moment in time, you may not know this, but you may have cast that particular dice, and that dice may not necessarily turn out, the numbers may not be in your favor. You may have set loose in motion something that's going to keep you occupied for a very long time, and it needn't have happened if you hadn't even made the utterance in the first place. And the analogy of the mud is perfect. Truly, if I'm going to sort of like force you to sit on a muddy patch, I have to be next to the muddy patch.
Yep. You'll also
I must
get
be
dirty.
standing on the muddy patch.
And
I will also get muddy. So really, can someone around local, will they tell the difference between the person who's being kept in the mud and the person who's keeping the other in the mud?
All of you are muddy.
That is why our politicians are muddy. Our decision makers are muddy.
Have a good day, folks, and thank you very much for tuning in. Between now and 3 o'clock, uninterrupted music, sugar and spice and everything nice before you get to Spice Drive and then the adults in the room. Good morning. It's now 10 o'clock.
Spice up your life